because it just turns out stupid all the time. It sounds badly rehearsed. Yeah, I after different trials and errors and stuff, I realized like I'm really not an on-camera person, not really. I'm not an actor. You know, like actors, you have to memorize lines and you have to act it out and all that stuff. I absolutely suck at it.
Hey, well, this is why I did not pursue an acting career, because it was the memorization of the lines that was the biggest challenge for me. I was constantly stumbling around that. It's funny, I have a great memory for like stories and other things, but like for some reason lines, I just could not, they just fall out of my head. I could never could quite get it and keep it. So
Yeah. But I enjoy improving though.
yeah,
That's a different skill.
it's a totally different skill. And actually, I translated my acting career, such as it was, into emceeing, which was all about improv, right? So it's all about like you just get up on stage and then like you get to chat and you talk and you welcome people, and so it kind of marries my that improvisation, but with like some hospitality into it. So you know, it's always great when you have people in the audience who are a little grumbly, because then you can kind of, you totally can work with them, you know, and especially if they're if they're open to having some fun with you.
Yeah.
And when you do this, you realize almost immediately you gain the skill of like, okay, that's not a person that's open to playing. Like they're in a bad place or whatever their thing is, or they're busy or they're cruising, because I'm in gay bars a lot. But when you find somebody who's, you can tell you can play with it, like the whole thing just snaps and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate to find people to play with weekly for about 20 years. So, you know, at different shows that I did over my past career.
But weekly, did you say for 20 years? There was some background noise. I think you were rustling paper or something. Did you say 20
Probably,
years?
yeah. Yeah. So starting in the late 90s until it was about 20 years, from like around 1997 or so until 2015. I was almost not completely, but almost continuously emceeing weekly shows in LA or here in New York,
Mm-hmm.
in different venues, different things to do it. And it was really fun. And I haven't done that now for about 6 years now. And I really miss it. It's because it's a part of my skill set that it's just rusty, and I don't get time to really, I don't get any opportunities to really get on a microphone and stand in a room of people anymore, which is annoying, but what can you do?
But so these are shows that you were emceeing. So, I mean, like, for example, what kind of shows were they?
So they were always like interview shows or like basically raffles. So, like you do a fundraiser and everybody's in the room, and then like you're selling raffle tickets, and then like somebody's got to be up on the microphone and like be entertaining, or like I did this bingo thing. I think you know about my bingo thing.
I think
So
so. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's because we met in a corporate setting. It's not, it wasn't like something I was just gonna like talk about for a lot of reasons, But I did this bingo event, this fundraising bingo event for about a decade, and 470 shows, and we raised $250,000. And so I was emceeing and I was producing the show, and I was getting all the prizes and booking all the guests. So it was a lot to
Yeah.
do. And then when I started, and I was doing that because I was also doing temp work and I was doing lots of project stuff. And so like, I always had the time for it. And then when I started, where we met, I was suddenly like, oh my God, I have a full-time job. How can I do literally two full-time jobs at the same time? One that paid like a full-time job and one that didn't. I mean, the bingo was a labor of love.
Sure.
I loved doing it, but I literally, I would be embarrassed to even tell you or say publicly in a video, what I actually got paid on a weekly basis, which wasn't much. But it wasn't about the money. It was about the project, and it was about the fun of doing it. Much like the comic strip, which is why I'm assuming why you have asked me to join you for this extravaganza, episode 15.
Nice segue.
Not my first time.
Not your first rodeo. So let me officially introduce you, because I didn't even say your name yet.
There you go.
Yeah, Drew Altenburg.
Yes.
So a Midwesterner, right?
Yes.
Born and raised in Midwest.
Yeah. So I didn't send you a bio. So you said that the
That's
option
right.
was,
you still owe me a bio.
I know I still owe you a bio. So I'm just going to give you my bio. So I was born in a small town. It sounds like the opening of a novel. I was born in a small town in Wisconsin. I was population 3,000.
Wow.
A little paper mill town, and on the banks of the Wisconsin River. I mean, it was and is very picturesque. It's a beautiful little town. And growing up in the 70s, there was a lot of fun. But once I finished high school and started to get inklings of, I'm a big gay, I figured maybe that wasn't the best. I mean, I just figured that it wasn't the best place for me. And I also was like, I need to find some community. And the community that I thought I needed to find was elsewhere. And I think that proved to be true. A couple of years ago, I went back for a wedding of my oldest friend who got married to her girlfriend. And I was very nervous. So I was like, oh, Jesus, like growing up, it wasn't exactly the friendliest place to the gays, And, but, like we have to allow places and people to change, right? So
yeah,
I was going back. I was very anxious and very nervous, but it was really beautiful. It was really a remarkable experience. And they ended up getting married the day before Stonewall, the celebration of Stonewall 50, which they didn't know about. I knew about, and I thought, well, there is literally no better way to celebrate the birth of the gay rights movement than to be at a wedding of my oldest and best friend and her girlfriend and now wife with my boyfriend. And it was just, the whole thing was just great. It was I know that's like telling somebody about a dream, like you go like, yeah, that sounds great. It just was. We were on the top of a mountain. It was a beautiful weather. It was a beautiful day. Like it was magical. It was just fantastic. And then we got stuck there because of the weather. And it started to rain the next day, and we were like, we can't fly out. We are stuck here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, you were mouthing something. You could say whatever you want. You don't have to. You don't have to censor yourself.
I know that's my that's part of my sensibility is to sort of
Oh, is it?
a little bit, yeah. And I'm also so like I've been in the corporate sector for so long that I'm so used to having boundaries, which is unusual for me, but and trying to respect that. So thank you for saying that. I appreciate that.
Well, that's kind of funny because I do remember, I don't think I necessarily bit my tongue every time I went. I mean, I didn't say it in open meetings, like in official meetings or anything. But if it was just chatting with colleagues, like, water cooler talk and whatever, like I don't think I censored myself in any way. I said whatever.
Well, I mean, first of all,
once in a while,
you don't censor yourself. That's the joy of you, is you don't censor yourself. Wait,
what does that mean?
No, that's a compliment. I think there's,
okay.
Actually, I think that's one of your biggest strengths, is that you are unapologetically yourself. And I don't think that you hide, and I don't think that you censor yourself. I tend to be a lot more reserved in those kinds of settings, because I could sort of like a sailor. I can talk about a lot of stuff that's super not appropriate for the office. So I have to sort of cut back on the boundary, like so far so that if when I go over it, I'm still within boundary, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
And
I don't.
especially in our environment and that job that we were in, which was very conservative in some ways, not
Yeah.
every way, but in some
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
And, I think it's, and in doing events, where you're dealing with like the CEO and like people.
Well, right. If you're working, that's different,
Yeah.
right? It's the
Yeah.
same thing as like, I mean, I didn't do events, but it's the same
Yeah.
thing as, if I were in a meeting setting, or if I was leading a meeting, like I wouldn't be cursing left and right.
Well, exactly. But
That
you
would
sort
be
of feel like
inappropriate.
I have to kind of do this all the time because I'm worried about slipping up. So if I just sort of
Right.
like set a track, then
Right.
on the other hand, I did manage an event at the CEO's apartment. And they were so comfortable with me that as I was putting everything away and moving the furniture and doing my thing, the CEO of our business walked out in his underwear.
Oh, nice.
It
Wait.
was a moment where I went, and didn't, I don't think actually I did that. I think that was my internal
Yeah.
cartoon face. But on the outside, I was like, okay. But on the inside, I was like, holy mother of God, what am I doing? What am I seeing? My eyes, but that's also like, well, it's a compliment because he felt really comfortable with it.
Yeah. And I mean, ultimately it is about reading your room, right? I mean, from emceeing.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is exactly that, just reading the situation and seeing like and acting appropriately to the situation. So like, with certain colleagues that I'm very comfortable with, like I would not, I don't really censor myself. But then if I'm in mixed company, like, I wouldn't say certain things in mixed company that I would in other settings. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't think that's being disingenuous. I think it's just
I think it's also respect for the other person and respect
exactly.
for the milieu, right?
Yeah.
Some things are appropriate, some things are not. And we make our best decisions about those based upon previous experience, based upon observable facts and thoughts. Sometimes we go succeed, but
Yeah.
so yeah.
Uh
But yeah, so I
just
grew up
a
in, oh, sorry.
just a quick question about you were talking about your hometown. So before you left, were you not out?
I wasn't even out to myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I just didn't know. I just had no idea. And um, I grew up in a very, it was a very small town. Everybody knows kind of what you're doing. Um, I was very small, very skinny, terrified of everybody like 99% of the time, teased to within an inch of my life.
Oh,
And then there was, also a whole thing of like, I'm a cartoonist. I'm, get fairly decent grades, not the best, but, decent. I can't, or actually I give a shit about my grades.
right.
That's part of it, and I wasn't athletic in the
Right.
slightest, not even remotely. And uh, and in the band and in the choir, I was in theater, all that stuff. So you're like, okay, so you're just basically pointing, small town America, you're painting a big target on your head. And, and it was sort of unfun a lot of times. And
Yeah.
sometimes it was really fun. And I have great friends still there. And I have, I had great times, uh, so like it wasn't a horror show necessarily, but it was like I just don't feel like I fit in here, like that was the conversation I had with myself. Was and I gave it a shot. I went back after my first year of college. I went to a college in Minneapolis, and I went back for the summer of '83, and I'm like living with my mother, and my dad's passed away, but like we finally kind of dealt with that. He had died during my senior year of high school. So I finally kind of calmed down, and like life is sort of normal. And I'm at home in Wisconsin, and it's July, and I'm 19, and I literally have nothing to do because there's nothing to do for a 19-year-old, And it really wasn't until like another year or two after that I really started to sort of go, oh, I think I'm gay. And, and then I thought about some thoughts and feelings I had about a couple of classmates.
Uh-huh.
And was like, oh, I guess they call that desire. They
Mm.
call that, I'm into that, I'm into them. And it really was like a moment, and you have this, I had this moment, I had the moment. The moment was, it was triggered by an old friend of mine. So I'm in my sophomore, what year was that? I guess I was in my junior year, actually, now that I think about it. So I was in my junior year, and a
High
friend
school?
of college. I
Oh,
was in
college.
my junior year of college, and a friend of mine from the freshman year that I had met and was like, hello, how are you? But didn't understand that that's what I was doing. Like, you do this stuff, but you're not. And he came up to me, and that freaked me out. And then because I was like, oh my God, am I gay? And I guess I am, but I don't know. And then I shoved it back down a lot for a couple of years. And then he called out of the blue. And over the course of the phone call, which was all about 3 minutes, I was like, oh, I think I'm gay. Because all I can think about is taking a shower with him. So I was like, I'm pretty sure that means I'm gay. And there was this moment, like people always just, like the big traumatic moment. I was like, I will now do for you my big traumatic coming out moment. Are you ready? I was like, I'm gay. Okay. That is now it. I literally, not even kidding. And I was at a small Lutheran college in Minneapolis, and I went over to the U of M to their library so nobody would see me, and like pulled out some books thinking they're all gonna tell me I'm going to hell and I'm a terrible person and I'm sick and I'm demented but I need to know this so that I can defend myself. Like, knowledge is power, right? And book after book was like, it's totally normal. It's just a part of the world. Get over it. I mean, really, I'm not kidding. It was like, I don't know if I was picking the right books. I don't know. But I was like, okay, so my big fear about this is really, it's not a big deal. And, and then, and I wasn't really sure. So I actually spent a semester in London during my senior year, partly obviously to be studying in London, like who would want to do that? And I was like, well, I'll just come out there and then I will figure it out. Like I either am or not, but this way I'm off camera. Nobody knows me and I can kind of do what I want. And
Right.
that proved to be very good. And that was really great. And from there, I really started building some great community in my life, and which has, I'm still friends with people that I met in those days. Actually, I'm friends with people I know throughout my life, which is really a really lovely blessing. And I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. Also, London would be more gay friendly than Minneapolis or
You know,
wherever you were in Wisconsin.
well, so I was in Minneapolis, and I was like having this thing, and I was like, am I gay? And this woman friend of mine, Nancy, just a wonderful friend, and she, out of the blue, was like, we should go dancing. But I know you're trying to save money for London, so I know a free place. And I was like, okay. And as we were leaving the building of the college, she was like, it's a gay bar. Is that a problem? And of course, part of me was like terrified, like, oh my God, like I'm going to be exposed, or, oh my God, I'm going to find out, or I'll see people and they'll know, like.
Did she know or?
No, I barely knew. I was barely like, this was like weeks after this phone call with this guy. I was just trying to still figure it out. And we go into
Was
the
she
bar.
gay?
No, she's not gay. No.
Okay, she just chose a gay bar because.
Because it was free. Because she was like,
Okay.
it's a free and it's a dance floor. Let's go. And
Okay.
so we went. And I have to tell you, it was really revelatory to me because up until then, I had what I think, admittedly in 1986, what people sort of had in their mind about what gay men were.
Mhm.
I'm from the same place that everybody else is. I had the same images. I had the same, pop culture images. And, the only gay character we knew about at that point was Jodi Dallas on Soap, and played by a non-gay actor, so I was like, I had a very stereotyped and not very affirmative and not a very positive thing, vision of that. And going to this bar was like the most revelatory and amazing experience of my entire life,
Mm.
where it was like, oh, gays come in all shapes, colors, sizes,
Size.
and everything. Like
Yeah.
it's like normal life. And you're like, oh, I know that's stupid to say, but that's what you think when you're a kid, right? You know, or at least
Yeah.
we did maybe back then. And I know other people that did too. And that really helped me, because it was like, oh, I can be whatever I want and still be, I don't have to like do whatever I thought was in my head at the time. So that was really helpful. And so
Right.
she
You
really
didn't,
did me.
yeah, you
So
didn't have to like necessarily act what you or the rest of the world you thought was gay acting. Yeah.
well, and you know, and the only thing at that time, the only people that you see that I saw anyway, and I'll just make it personal to me, the only people that I saw that were gay were the people who were really, really, really out.
Right. Right.
So like I know that there was lots of gay people that I knew, you know, like in retrospect, it's like, well, of course there was lots of gay people around me, but you know, they're not obviously gay. So you're like, you know, so it's this conundrum. And actually I was doing an internship at a local TV station, and I'm on the dance floor with Nancy, and I'm like trying to be like this close to her, like, you know, I'm straight, I'm straight. Like, I don't know what is wrong with me, you know. And who do I run into but the guy I report to at my internship at the TV station? And I was like, oh, hello.
So he's gay.
So I'm like, oh, okay, you know. And then I saw, like, I was in the chorus at the college, and I saw half the guys from the choir there, which
Right.
I don't know why I was surprised or anything, but like, but it did surprise me. I was like not prepared for anything. Like I was totally jumping in with both feet, and I'm so glad I did, because I didn't think about it too much.
Yeah.
I just went in, right. Um, and I can still think of what the bouncer looked like. He was like this sort of hot muscle guy in a tank top, and his hair was parted, and he was smoking, and he had tight jeans on and white tennis shoes. And I was like, oh, that's a gay guy. Oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Oh, wow, that's
Well,
amazing.
that's the thing with like well, stereotypes and also discrimination of different aspects of, you know, whether it's sexuality or gender or race or, you know, height or, you know, shape or whatever it is, right? Is that I mean, bottom line, we're human beings, and we come in, like you said, all shapes, sizes, and dispositions and personalities, you know, and like any group you could possibly think of, there are assholes in the group and there are good people in the group.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And you know, I hope that I don't, you know, I hope this is reflective of, I was 20 at the time, and you know, didn't have a lot of life experience. But you know, I do have sympathy for people then who are also then struggling to understand groups.
Yeah.
I know that I can't excuse racism or homophobia or sexism. I can't excuse, or transphobia. I can't excuse that, but I think I can understand it from a person point of view. And I think I'm not sure if it's that I'm forgiving. I think it really is just sort of more understanding and trying to put a
I think so.
context to it, because I
Yeah.
understand that then the perspective that you're coming from, especially as somebody, you know, like my grandmother. You know, my grandmother was born in 1904, so when I came out,
Yeah.
she was just, you know, and she was the only family person that actually sought to have some understanding. She's like, well, I don't understand. What does that mean? And I said, well, how you feel about grandpa is how I feel about like somebody I'm dating. And she was just not, it just, you know, but she was trying. And I thought that that was really, I could really respect her just for trying, even though
Hmm.
it wasn't a complete success. But for me, the success was that she was trying, not that she succeeded in being, you know, a banner waver person that PFLAG, you know, I didn't need that.
Right.
Uh, I
Right.
mean, that would be lovely, but that's not what I was expecting.
But you make a very good point that I think, you know, coming from a place of understanding, even understanding the person who is a racist, who is a bigot, who is discriminatory, that, you know, part of their whether it's their upbringing or their environment or,
The time that they live in. My
time that they
grandmother was
live
born in
in,
1904, so
or sometimes,
she just has a certain view of the world. I mean, she's
yeah,
passed away, she's long gone, but I mean, she was born in 1904, so I have to cut her some slack. It's my responsibility. Now, I know that there's a certain rule of thought of like, oh, I don't want to be the teacher for this. I don't want to have to teach everybody. And it's like, yeah, but that's kind of unfortunately where we're at. Like, I have to teach people about being gay.
that's kind of um our response. I think that's everyone's responsibility,
I agree with you. I've just seen a
yeah.
lot of conversation, especially right now in this time, where people were like, well, I don't want to have to teach you. I just want you to accept. And I'm like, yeah, but I think
I don't understand what
unfortunately,
that is that I'm accepting.
I think you just have to, unfortunately,
Yeah.
the work it falls upon us to explain and to contextualize and to teach and to see people on where they are on their path. And while that is frustrating and super hard a lot of times,
Yeah.
that is unfortunately, or whatever, it is just what it is. So,
Well, I think I see it this way. So, I find that I'm misunderstood a lot, or a lot of assumptions are being made about me because for whatever reason. And I don't think I get so much of that now. But especially when I was growing up, I'll hear things like, "Oh, you shouldn't act that way," or, "Oh, I'm surprised you said that or you did that." I mean, like, but why? Like, why would you assume that I wouldn't say certain things or do certain things or, whatever. But I mean, to be fair, I, during growing up, I was I'm an introvert, but I was also shy. I'm not necessarily shy anymore, not really. I mean, or I face my shyness and I do it anyway, right?
right.
But growing up, I was shy, so shy people are very often misunderstood because we don't necessarily vocalize what's going on internally. But anyway,
Yes.
so the way I see it is, if I want to be understood, then I have some obligation to help the other person understand. Either that or accept that you're not understood, and you have to accept that somebody else is not going to understand you. Now, I'm talking in generalities, but
Right.
I mean, but even when we talk about specific things like sexual orientation or or even cultural things, you know,
Yeah.
if you want the other people to understand you and accept you, then yes, you have some obligation to teach them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they will never understand.
Yeah.
So
I'm
why
just,
would you expect them to? Yeah.
oh, sorry. Uh, I'm just sort of struck by, I'm kind of a comic book fan, and I've been watching the Marvel series Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
And in last week's episode, the fifth one, the character Sam Wilson, have you been watching it?
No, I haven't, but it's okay. I don't,
So
yeah.
Sam Wilson, excuse me, as the Falcon, that's his superhero name,
Yeah.
as a, I don't know, 40-year-old Black man who's, like the superhero guy. And he discovers that there is a superhero from like 30, 40 years ago. And he confronts him and he's like, help me understand what the world was like and why you weren't public and what happened to you. And in the storyline, like he's been tested on and, uh, uh, and poked and prodded and, like a science experiment for 30 years. And but I'm just struck with the phrase, I want to understand, help me understand
Yeah.
your life story and where you are and why you are right now you are. And the guy does say, he's like, if you, because this Sam Wilson is Black, and he's like, if you think you're going to be the new Captain America, you're crazy. And it's a very interesting moment in the story because you think, is that true? is that possible, or is that the direction that the story is going, where Sam Wilson's going to prove him wrong, because we are a different country than this guy experienced over the last 30, 40 years. And I just find all that really interesting. But I keep coming back to you as part of this conversation of, please help me understand.
Yeah.
And I think if we tried, and it's really hard for everybody. Like, I know that is not an easy conversation to have, because it's real, and it's easier to fire off a one-liner online on social media or whatever, and say how brilliant you are, but it's not.
It's not. And
you're just being snotty.
Social media is not real life. And it's where you sort of, tangentially sort of connect yourself with other people, so that maybe down the road you want to talk to them or something. I don't know. But anyway, this is a conversation.
Yeah, I think this is a conversation. We're conversing. But no, and I think, it's, I've certainly had, not to wade too deep into this, but I've certainly had lots of conversations. Well, I should say that's not completely true. I've had lots of experiences lately where people have decided that they just need to say stuff to me online. That and my thought is, I'm happy to have a conversation with you. Like, if you have a political view and I have a political view, I'm happy to have a conversation with you, as long as neither one of us devolves into name calling and you're crazy and all that stuff. Right. But if you start from like a shouting thing, it's not going to get calmer. It's only going to get worse. So I disengage, because I don't think it's worth it.
I find that that on social media, people are not actually interested in engaging in actual conversation. There were times, like, I don't really do this anymore because I don't really have the patience. But when I first actually got on, social media, and this is 2016, I had a Facebook account before, but then I didn't really do anything on it. I hardly even accepted friend requests. I just had it because I was trying to figure out what this is. And back then I didn't get, this is like what, 2010s, early 10s. I didn't get it. And then it wasn't until 2016 I actually started interacting and liking people's posts and commenting on things and stuff. And at one point I was like, oh, well, somebody commented this. And I'm like, I have an opinion about that, so let me voice my opinion, right? But but most of the time, like, people are not really interested in engaging in any kind of meaningful conversation. So, like, I learned quickly, like, social media, it's just there for people to, like, post vacation photos or whatever, or vent.
I love the vacation photos, and to a certain degree, especially over the last few years, it's been a really great place to vent of stuff where, let's be honest, neither you or I have any real effect of the outcome of things. We do our best. We do work in the community. We try to keep ourselves educated and everything, but at the end of the day, we're not making policy. We're voting on it, maybe, if we get lucky, but we're not. At this point in my life, I'm not an elected official. I'm not on any board. I'm not shaping any policy. So I'm in a more, certainly, definitely a passive experience, as is most humans on the planet. And so it means something to me to have a community of people to go, oh my God, did you see that? Oh my God, this is terrible. What do you think? Blah, blah, blah. So that part I think is really great. I think we get really, and I'm so guilty of this as well. So I'm certainly not throwing a stone that I wouldn't throw at myself. You get really wrapped up and really heated, and it's, ultimately it's not even really satisfying, because it's just not satisfying. It doesn't lead to anything and go anywhere. Anyway, I feel like we're going down a rabbit hole.
We are, and that's okay. That's part of the characteristic of a long form conversation is, we go on off on tangents and stuff. But anyway,
Yeah.
going back to your comic. So,
Yeah, my
um,
comics.
yeah. So, I think earlier you said even when you were in school, you were drawing comics. So that started a long time ago. So when did your interest in creating comics start?
Very long time ago. So when I was really young, really, like we're talking literally 5 years old, I had this thing where I really liked to draw, and very crudely, movie posters, because I really loved movies. I thought they were really cool, and television shows. And I used to do this thing where I would come up with a TV schedule with like with an imaginary network. So I would put all my favorite shows in different time slots, and I would like create the grid that you see in the close up and TV guide, or in the fall preview, excuse me, for the TV guide.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would come up with my own thing, and I'd be like, "Oh, this is so cool!" And then I would like draw the movie poster. I just make up movies, and I just like draw stuff. And I had very few Legos, but like one of the Legos that I had was like this gray, like I guess it was like a floor, like a gray foundation, and then
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
so I would like make, and I don't know why or how I started doing this, but I started creating like layouts of a movie theater, like wouldn't it be cool to have a movie theater? And so like the drawing was sort of like all in that, right? And then uh, I, it wasn't really until I was like maybe 11 or 12 that I was sort of really drawing to try to figure out how to draw. And I had taken an art class in a junior high, and it was a painting class, and I really wanted to learn. But it was really not like a pencil. I could really understand how to draw that. Like I understood that, but the brush has always been a mystery to me. I can't quite control it right, and I'm not one with a brush, right? But and I had then a very, I mean, it sounds stupid to call it traumatic. It wasn't, but you're doing the thing, and the teacher comes over and says, "Oh, you're doing it wrong," and then they like reach around and they finish the painting for you.
Oh, that's not nice.
And then the painting got into an art show, and people were like, "You're such a good artist," and I'm like, what do you say at that moment? I didn't win a prize, thank God, but I was sort of like, ugh. I just, every time I looked at it, I just kind of cringed, and I was like, ugh. It was a beautiful painting. He was a great artist. He was really good,
But it wasn't yours.
but it wasn't
Yeah.
mine. It was
Yeah.
like, it was 99% his, right?
Yeah.
And so I really took, I think maybe the lesson I took from that is that, I'm going to just sort of teach myself and figure out how to do this myself. And I mean, being again in a small town in Wisconsin, it didn't have a lot of options as far as art teacher. And I was also really into my theater, or I was acting a lot in plays and stuff. And then
I actually had the opposite experience. So when I was little, I used to draw pretty well for a kid. And so every time like there was a drawing assignment, this is grade school we're talking about, like third grade, fourth grade. Whenever there was a drawing assignment, like I would, do my thing, and I would be, maybe I'm not the best in the class, but I was pretty good. And then all the kids around me would be like, "Oh, that's so good. Can you do mine?" And so I would get, and I'm like, "But if I do it, then it's not yours."
exactly.
Yeah. It's kind of like, the kids asking the teacher, well, what's the answer, instead of like trying to figure out, like what 2 + 2 actually is.
Yeah.
Like, no, what is the answer? Tell us the answer and we'll just memorize it. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't really understand that. But anyway, sorry.
Oh, no, no, no,
No.
no. So I started, I think my love of TV and movies sort of gave way to love of comic books. And I started with like Casper and Richie Rich. And I loved Archie for about a nanosecond. Although I always loved the digest, because like it was the best 60 cents you could spend, because it was like these thick digests and you get all this material for like no money at all.
Wait, Archie as in like Archie and Jughead and
Yeah.
oh,
Like
that
they used to do all
Archie.
these
Okay.
these like 100-page digests that you get
Yeah,
for 60 cents. And I thought, this is the best value ever. Like, I don't care that it's something from 30 years ago. It's funny. But then I started loving superheroes, and then I started wanting to draw superheroes, and then Star Wars came out, and I wanted to draw Star Wars. So I sat down and I created, I think it was like 12 pages, and I still have it. A Star Wars, like a Mad Magazine or cracked magazine version of a Star Wars movie, and or the Star Wars thing, and it was okay. It actually kind of was okay. And when I was a freshman in high school, I entered it into a contest, and all like dozen pages, whatever it was, dozen pages, and it won. And like I think I won like
Nice.
I think I won like $1.50. It was like awesome, like yeah. And then they published a magazine, and they only published like 3 pages because they were like, it's too long. We just want to. Yeah. I was like,
Well,
it doesn't make any. It makes no sense now, but okay, whatever.
how many pages was it
I
altogether?
think it was like 12 pages.
Oh, that's not so bad. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but they didn't edit. They just chose 3 whole pages to include instead of, it was very strange. But it was very, very, very strange. And then so and like we used to in my freshman year, I would sit right on the study hall, study hall. And the studio student was like, yeah, I am doing my homework, and everybody's like throwing spitballs and doing whatever. And across the table from me was this fellow, Brian. I was at the beginning of the alphabet and he was at the end. So they just did this whole loop.
Right.
And they wouldn't let you talk. So we started passing little notes. And he's got a great sense of humor, did and does still have a great sense of humor. And we would do we both love Saturday Night Live. So we would do ripoffs of Saturday Night Live characters, like little drawings, or we'd do a news thing and and write those out, and we just write with pencil on a paper and fold it up and and then pass it across, and then we that kind of got more elaborate, like we would do these things, and then you fold them up into the tiniest little thing that you could, and then you pass it in the hallway, kind of thing. So we would do these things, and we started creating all these characters. And I have to tell you, I don't know how or why we started to do this, what I'm going to tell you next. And I don't know how we got hired. To this day, I still wonder, did my dad pay the paper to do this? Because there's a little worry in mind. So Brian and I decided we could we had a weekly paper in town, and we were like, we'll just write a weekly comic strip.
So
somehow we just decided to do this, and we walked into the newspaper, which the office was about the size of this room, and we were like, we want to draw a comic strip, and the guy was like, okay.
Wait, did the paper already have a comic strip
section? There was nothing.
Oh.
There was not even an editorial column. It was an
Okay.
8-page local paper. It was
So
weird.
maybe that's why, because he wanted something new in there.
I guess, but I don't think that there was an ad. I don't think that they called for people. I think we just walked in and were like, hey, would you be interested in buying this? And they were like, yeah, sure.
Well, maybe the editor thought hey, these kids have, they have gumption. Hey, yeah, let's try them out.
We came in with a bunch of samples. We just said, well, we can do this.
Wait, how old were you?
Let's see, it would have been late 79, so I was 15.
Okay, well,
and Brian was a year older. Brian was 16.
Yeah, so you were teenagers. Yeah,
we were just dumb teenagers, right? And so we started doing this comic strip, and fumbling our way through it, and really fumbling our way through it. And as far as the drawing, the lettering, the inking, the deadline, all of that was learning lessons for us.
Good lessons, though.
No.
Yeah.
Amazing lessons, and being creative, and you have to sort of produce this every week, right? And there were some weeks when you just get busy and you're doing this and doing that and you don't do it, but and I, the strip now that I'm doing, which I'll tell you a little bit more about as we go along, but it sort of is very similar, because we had a lot of characters and we kind of rotated them in and out, and I really like that. That's something that I think it's fun, and I think it's interesting as a writer and a cartoonist to work with a lot of different characters and have sort of a chorus at my disposal. I have about 40 or whatever at my disposal right now. And somebody can always pop up who was, in some other strip, and I just posted one the other day where I had a character who was in one strip like 4 years ago, and I was like, oh, I need a telephone operator. I'll just put her in. Why not? She's like this universe's, telephone operator. She's always the person that's the telephone operator. Great.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
like
care.
the
Nobody
Marvel
cares.
universe. Yeah.
A little bit like that. So I love all that kind of stuff, and like, well, why is she there, and how did that happen? And like, I like all that stuff. So that's stuff that's fun for me. And anyway, so we were doing this thing, and we created sort of what became our signature character, which is Angie. And I still have Angie now because I love Angie. I think she's awesome. And Angie was named for a girl we knew who was named Angie, who had a great sense of humor and looked very much like Angie does. And we at first, when we first were doing it, we called her Little Orphan Angie, which we thought was funny, but sort of more when I revived it a few years ago, I was like, there's copyright stuff. Let's not do that. So let's not have anything more against us than or against me than there is, right? So but she did like a lot of the same things, and so it was really fun to have her do little goofy things. I think my favorite strip of hers in the original run, and so we lasted from 80 to 82. She had off camera saved somebody from something and got a broken leg, and so was in the hospital. And Reagan, who was notoriously, at the time, sort of like people were like, he's got dementia, he's forgetting stuff, right? So I had him come in and like, well, Angie, thank you for saving, here's a medal, thank you very much. And he goes out, he leaves, and she's like, turns the camera, goes like, people criticize him for his memory, he's just a really great guy. And then he comes in and repeats the exact same speech with another. My mother was mad, which I didn't realize that we were Republicans. So like, whoops, I didn't know my family all voted Republican. I just had no idea because
but still, there is such thing as like self-deprecating humor.
Right. I thought it was funny. She wasn't as wild about it, but my parents were very supportive of it. In fact, and we created other characters, Sam Witch, a detective with a heart of gold. Oh, it's Ace Detective with a Heart of Gold. That's what it was. And then and another one of my favorites. So Brian had gone to college because he was a year older, and a friend of ours, Tom, and I co-created and put together this 10-week thing called Space Cadets, which was a whole science fiction ripoff, sort of combining Star Wars and Star Trek, and it was really dumb, which everything I do is really dumb, but I think it's still funny. And then and during this time, my dad, who had been sick for about a year at that point, passed away. And at the end of 81, the paper was like, it's been 2 years, we're done. And I was like, my dad just died. I'm okay with that. Mm-hmm. I'm okay with being done. So, and so, when I'm in junior high and I'm tracing comic books on the window, like I had an actual Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes, a big collector's edition, it was oversized. So I had all these superheroes flying. So I put it up to the window and I was like tracing so I could understand, muscles and how things in the body laid together from a drawing perspective. And so I spent a lot of time doing that kind of stuff and trying to replicate that. And my dad saw that, and he for Christmas one morning, when I was like 14 or 15, I came down and found a drawing table.
Nice.
And it was really cool.
That was so sweet.
Cool. It was really cool. And like, it was one of the best presents I've ever had. And so it was really great. And, so I was the typical nerdy kid, right? So I would spend my Fridays and Saturday nights, I would sit at my drawing board and I would draw the Lone Apple. Not that it was in the comic strip, but I was something I was working on, and I have sort of all these issues, fake comic book issues that I created that are like 10, 12 pages long and have a cover and all this stuff, all this goofy teenage stuff, nerdy teenage stuff that you'd see. And but nobody ever really saw that. I never shared that with anybody because I thought, oh, this is too weird and nobody will ever get it, all that stuff. And people barely understood what we were doing as it was. I didn't really need to add a flying apple like to the mix too. And so, and then, like I said, and so all that was wrapped up in my father, and when he died, it just all sort of felt like it ended.
Mm.
And, and I put that stuff all away, and it was really, it was hard. It was hard to do that. But I also thought like, well, I'm never going to make it as a cartoonist. I'll be an actor instead. Like, could I have picked a more useless?
Well, I mean, but to be fair, I think, I don't know, how many cartoonists are there?
There's not that many.
Yeah.
There's really, in the scheme of things, paid people who actually have a career, and it's not that many. I'm being a little facetious, but I mean, also like you think, yes, there's more actors than there are cartoonists. Yes. So I understand that, right? Yeah. That wasn't my thing was, I just don't think I'm good enough. And so I just, move on to something else. And, but I kept, sort of drawing, like every once in a while, I would like, I wonder what Angie's doing today. I wonder what the Lone Apple is doing. And I would like jot some notes. I would like, now they're doing this, or this is a funny little thing. And I just file it. And
so they've become, so you created these characters, but then at some point they sort of take on a life of their own.
Totally. Yeah. 100%. Oh my God. Yes, absolutely. And they really, I mean, when writers or cartoonists or whomever says that the characters speak to them, I really hear it. It's really interesting. It's really fascinating. So fast forwarding to the 90s, I had gone to graduate school at Northwestern, and we, and this is going somewhere, trust me. I took a storytelling class, and at one point, the teacher was like, I want you to tell a story that's really visual and use visual aids, like some way that you can, do it. And I had been in a children's theater puppet show production of a book called The Big Orange Splot several years before.
So The Big what?
The Big Orange Splot.
Okay.
So it's a book by Daniel Pinkwater, published by Scholastic. I think it's published around 1977. And I was in a puppet show that had adapted it as literal puppets, like I was actually doing puppets for children. So I told this story as, as a visual. And there's a lot of little details to it. Like there's a house, all the houses on the street are the same. And then one day a big orange splot falls on one of the houses. And the guy, instead of painting it over, he adds like baobabs, and then he gets an alligator, and he like paints all these fun shapes on his house. And it's all, and then all the neighbors come to tell him, please stop, please turn it back to normal. And instead, and then he talks to them about their dreams. And suddenly the whole neighborhood becomes this wonderful expression of everybody's selves. And I couldn't remember some of the stuff, so I just cut it out of construction paper. And as I was saying, I was like, oh yes, and then there's the pen. And I would like put it on the thing, and then here's the thing, and I put it on the thing. And somebody was like, that would really make a great show. So a few years later, out of the blue, a friend I had talked to, who was a choreographer in LA, rings me up and he says, we have Long Beach Civic Light Opera interested in The Big Orange Splot, the musical. My writing partner and I have written songs. Can you come to LA for a couple of weeks and write the script?
Wow.
This is out of the blue. I've never written a script before in my entire life. And, but I was like,
sure, why not?
Sure, why not? Now, picture it, Sicily, 1932. Picture it, it's the early 90s. I have a computer that has a tower, like that's like this big. It's like a tower, right? And then the monitor, which is like, those old monitor things, and a keyboard. And I had to schlep that from where I was living in Chicago all the way to LA. And I stayed with a friend, and I think my desk was like books and a piece of wood. And then I put the monitor on it, and I was like,
that's the best kind.
Right. So, and Mark, the choreographer, and I got together and we talked through all the ideas that we had. And we put them all on note cards, each individual, and we laid them out end to end on the floor of his apartment and then put them in order. And then I sat down to write. And I'm like, okay, how do I do this? All right, so a title page. Okay, the big orange blob. Whew, that's easy. Okay, like cast of characters. Okay, let's start putting that together. So I just kind of did it as like creating the script from scratch. And they really started to talk to me, all these characters. I can't describe it. It's a children's playwright, Susan Zeter, says something like, and I can't seem to find the real quote, but something like, her stories, she said, come to her. They don't come from her. They just pass through her. They're starting from somewhere else. They're passing through her, and she's writing it down, and then they're on the way to somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps because that experience was like that. I really was like, I'm just transcribing somebody else's show. And I know I wasn't like, I wasn't plagiarized, but I feel like I was like taking something from the ether. It was just the most amazing experience. And
I would say if you talk to a lot of different kinds of creatives, whether they're artists or, I mean, in my songwriting too, I have those experiences. Anything that where you are doing something creative,
yeah,
that when you really get like zone in on it, you're not creating anything. Basically, you're channeling something. I have no idea where these songs come from.
I'm grateful for whatever it is. So, and then, like a month later, the show went on and I was like, okay, well, we need to fix a couple things, a couple minor things, just some plot stuff, just like a couple of little things that didn't really work that we could fix. And, it had a bit of a run here and there. And then we sort of discontinued it a while ago because of various, rights issues and stuff. We had some rights to do it for non-for-profit in schools. But I've been trying to crack getting the real rights for a long time, and I can't seem to get that, but that's a whole nother conversation, not today. But so more so now than when I was a teenager, I feel like the Lone Apple and the Mass Grape and Angie and whomever, I feel like they talk to me and I'm just transcribing, and they are telling me what the story is, and they're telling me what the joke is, and they're revealing themselves to me, and I'm so grateful for it, and I'm glad that I can't say I can't say that I'm grateful for the pandemic, of course. However, because of the pandemic, I have had 2 extra hours a day when I wasn't commuting to devote to it, and also a tremendous, especially last, April, May, June, a tremendous amount of anxiety and terror of how am I going to get through this, and what can I do to get through this. And what I did to get through it was draw. And how it came about was when I met Matthew, my current partner, in 2016, he wanted to see my old drawings, these old comic strips from high school. And he picked one that he really liked, and he said, "Can you redraw this?" And I did, and it's up on the wall over there now. So I thought, well, maybe I could do this once in a while. So I kind of did it sporadic from late 2016 till a year ago. I did like 68 strips throughout that time, and it was sort of, I always tried to get on a schedule, and I just couldn't quite get on the right rhythm with it, And I was actually kind of bummed out about a year ago, and about it, about not being able to sort of do it more regularly and stick to it. And during the early days of the pandemic, one of the things that I was doing with a lot of friends was just sort of, texting, "Happy Monday, Happy Tuesday." And it was for them, but it was also for me, of course, because it was like, I need to be anchored to something, anything, that's real. and the days of the week are real, and we can talk about it, and it might spur a
Yeah.
conversation. And my best friend, Roland, who I've known for many years now, said to me at one point, why don't you just add a drawing to each one of those? So it's like Angie saying happy Monday, like it doesn't have to be anything elaborate, just that. And he said, then you could continue to do your drawing and still do this little thing and then send it out to people. And that lasted 2 days and then I suddenly was like, oh, here's a joke, I'm going to do this joke. Oh, now I'm going to do this thing. Oh, now I'm going to do string a few together. Oh, now I'm going to do a story. And so since last May 17th, I have done, I figured this out, but I can't remember now exactly. It's about 250 about now.
Okay.
At this point. So that's
So
really
almost every day.
almost every day.
Yeah.
There was my day job now, as an events person, was super crazy from August to January. And it just, like I just couldn't do it every day. Like I would work on something and it might take me 3 days to do something that would normally have taken me one, just because I just didn't have the time or energy. But I've been really committed to it, and work has been, knock on wood a little bit, super slow since mid-February. I've been a little bit quieter. So I've been able to actually devote my evenings to the work. And I go through phases like everybody does with every work.
Yeah.
Where some days you're like, this is a trial. And some days you're like, oh my God, I can't wait to get this done. This is amazing. I love this,
Yeah.
That's just part of the process. And I recognize that. And I think what I think is the sort of biggest accomplishment within that thought, in that internal conversation, is I kind of don't want to do this today, but I'm going to anyway, because my commitment to myself and to my art is to do it every day. And as best as I can, when there's, not external circumstances, I will do it, and that means something to me. And that has really helped keep me grounded over the last year. I don't know what I would have been, where I would be at if I hadn't had this in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's successful or not successful, or nobody reads it or whatever, I don't, like, yes, I care because I'm a human being and I'm as competitive and as desirous for success as everybody else is. And yet part of the success, though, is I did it today.
Yeah.
Today I did that.
Yeah.
And on days I don't do it, I'm more forgiving. I was really frustrated in the fall, and I was, all that stuff. And now I'm more like, if I miss it today, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm telling a story, and I'm at the end of Legion of Bugs right now. So I'm kind of more like, I just kind of, like I don't want to take another break because I have some momentum. So I don't want to really necessarily stop, although we're going away for the weekend. So I either need to get like 3 done tomorrow, possible, but unlikely, or I just skip until Monday. So
yeah, and it's okay if you do, either way.
And that's part of the forgiving yourself and moving on, and then and understanding you need to take a break here and there, and and whatever. So and I don't have an editor at the moment screaming down my back, saying, where is that thing? And I don't have that. So it's a luxury of, if I do it today, it's great. If I don't, then.
Yeah. But I do understand the thing about momentum, because like one of the things that I sort of regret not doing is the latter part of last year, I was incredibly not productive in terms of creative things. And so like I didn't write any songs or anything. I didn't actually work on my music at all. And so now like I'm trying to get back into it, and I feel so rusty, you know. I'm actually planning something like in the third week of May. But like I haven't actually sung anything either. Like, so my vocals are all shot, and like I'm sort of having an anxiety about it. And like I should start singing and start exercising my vocal cords. But like, yeah, but it's kind of, So yeah, just like chiming in there, like when you do have a momentum, sometimes it's important to kind of continue that. Otherwise, like sometimes when you stop, kind of getting back on it, it takes a lot more energy to kind of like get back on that thing.
Well, and there's also the piece of certainly in 2016, there was sort of this thing that hung in the air, which was, why did I stop?
Oh,
Why didn't I not do that? What have I been doing? I missed this for 40 years. I can't believe I missed it. And there was some sadness and some,
hmm,
I don't know if I'd say regret, because I'm not sure, like, I don't know if I'm necessarily regretful about it, but I think that there's
yeah,
something in there. I'm not sure what the exact feeling is, but it's a wistfulness of, if I had the confidence when I was 25 or 30
yeah,
did now, then maybe I would have a syndicated strip. But but you can't really talk in that, because that's not the universe we're living in. And in some parallel universe,
yeah,
there's a me that's a world famous cartoonist.
yeah.
Awesome. That's not this universe, unfortunately.
But there
But
was a reason why you stopped. I
yeah,
guess the question is, why didn't you pick it back up sooner? Maybe.
well,
Then,
I never really
yeah.
thought it was kind of an option. Like, I was really focused on. I mean, and to be fair to myself, I went from graduate school. I went from coming out and sort of figuring out, like, what the hell I am and who I am, to graduate school, to doing a lot of children's theater in the 90s, and through a wide variety of circumstances, starting to MC and plan and fund and produce fundraisers in LA, and then moved to New York, and then did this bingo thing, started working corporate events, and it's all about, like, hey, I have to earn a living. Hey, I have to do something that will,
There's that. Yes.
I have to, have health insurance, and and a job, and also this prevailing, underlying thing of, like, of sadness, of not having pursued it, and so the gift that
Yeah.
Matthew really gave to me was the gift of this again,
Yeah.
of sort of restoring it to me.
And one, and also like it wasn't like you were doing nothing else. You
Well,
know what I mean?
it was kind of busy, I was really busy
Yes.
doing a lot of other stuff, and
Yeah.
I really feel that the stuff that I was doing was really meaningful, and I raised a lot of money for different organizations, especially in LA. Really, I can really feel good about that part of my life, and really did some amazing stuff that I will be proud of for the rest of my life. It means that maybe those years I should have been drawing. Yeah, there's no way to go back and redo that, or it wasn't even really a thought in my head, except for a little, like, oh, Angie, that's funny, draw a note and throw it in a folder somewhere. Which, what's kind of the remarkable thing about this is that this has really prompted me to literally do a life cleansing. And I found a lot of stuff that I have done over the years that I threw into a folder. And some of those things are a little funny. Some of them are stupid,
Have you
but maybe one of them is something that I can, reuse into a
yeah,
different idea. So
yeah, exactly. So you've kept all those.
yeah.
Yeah, I have a tendency to lose mine. No, seriously, because like before I started writing songs, and now, it's mostly on the computer. So like, and now it's mostly on the cloud, in the cloud. So it will be difficult to lose it, other than like forgetting exactly where I filed it away, right?
Right.
But yeah, no, I have this tendency to lose like physical stuff, like because there are, I'm sure, books and piles and volumes of stuff that I wrote like on backs of like menus or napkins or receipts or whatever, anything that I had handy, that
Yeah.
I have no idea where any of those things are anymore. Like
Yeah.
they were lost over the years. Yeah.
Well, my superpower is organization. That has always been my superpower, or one of them. And I don't know if you can really see I've got a lot of wires here, but you can see this.
Yeah, nice.
So see the yellow envelopes. Each one of the small yellow envelopes are ideas for, and each character has their own envelope. And then the bigger envelopes is all finished art from this last sort of time of my life. And it's the only way that I can keep track of it. If I can't, if I don't have it somehow here, I just can't, I can't find it.
Yeah.
And I'd rather be hyper organized and be able to find everything than not. I don't know if that really came out.
Yeah, no, it's no, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, you know, me losing my own stuff is just my own fault. Well, there's it's a long story, but anyway, there like my very early works. So I used to write poetry starting like high school. That's when I
You're telling me
was
about that, yeah.
consistently. Yeah, so I'm a failed poet turned singer-songwriter. Or that's the official story. The actual story is slightly different. But anyway.
Well, what's the actual story? Now you can't just like build up the story and then leave it like that.
Oh, okay. So the official story as to like how I became a singer-songwriter was there was this poem that I wrote one day and I hated it as a poem. I thought it sucked. It failed. So I decided to turn that into lyrics. And that's how I started writing song lyrics and then eventually whole songs.
So you didn't fail at all. It just we're working in the wrong medium.
No, right. So that's the official story. The actual story is one day I wrote this poem. So, well,
I'm just waiting to hear how you're going to translate this into a big tragedy, because it doesn't sound like a tragedy or a failure.
No. Well, no, it kind of rolls off the tongue well. Like, you know, I started writing songs because of a failed poem. So it's like a failed poem became lyrics and then the rest is history, you know, kind of thing, right? But the actual story is I wrote this poem one day and I liked it so much that I thought, hey, I wonder if I could turn this into song lyrics. And that's how I started writing songs.
But I'm curious why do you say it's a failed thing because it's funnier? Because
no,
you are a funny person. I think that you're a very funny person. And so I'm wondering if I think you've got a good sense of humor. It's one of the reasons I adore you. But I'm wondering if calling it a failed thing is just a humor thing. Because I like the second story. The real story is much better. It's so positive and upbeat. It's awesome.
Is it?
I loved it so much that I wanted to make it even better and make it a song.
Yeah. So the failed part does come into play. And so the reason why the official story is not the actual story, it's a false memory. So so maybe years later. So I started writing 2003. So early 2003 is when that happened, when the poem turned into a song. And then I had like 3 or 4 years of nothing. And then I started writing again and then kept writing. And that's when it actually really started. But the first song, you know, like after 2 songs, I was like, oh, I don't have anything more in me. And so it wasn't until years later that I started telling the story, because people would ask, hey, how did you, you know, start writing songs? And I would say, hey, you know, a few years ago, I wrote this poem that I thought sucked, because that's how I remembered it.
Interesting.
Yeah. But then many years later, right? So after I actually released the albums, this is like 15 years later or something like that, between 10 and 15 years later, I released the album. And so the official story that I told during my album release party, you were there, it was that, hey, this is the song that got it started. And I wrote it as a poem and I hated it. And so I turned into song lyrics and my friends set it to music and that's how it became a song. Years after that, I recently, like maybe a year ago, I went back to my old notes and I started reading my notes. And in the margins, I actually wrote, hey, I really like this. I wonder if it would work as song lyrics. I'm like, wait a minute, then I remember this whole thing incorrectly.
That's
So,
amazing.
but what happened was, so I liked the poem so much that I turned into song lyrics, and after I turned it into lyrics, it was the lyrics that I couldn't stand. And I'm like, this sucks. So that's why I gave it to my friend for a second opinion.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
that's when he set it to music, and that's how the song became. And then I got mad at him for setting it to music because I just wanted his opinion.
I'm really mad at you for turning my song into a better version of itself.
I know, but he liked it so much. That's why he set it to music.
This all sounds like great news. This all sounds like success and happiness and positivity. That's amazing.
I
You
know.
loved it. He loved it.
But I know, but and then but because he set it to music, and that's not what I wanted him to do, because I wanted to see if I could do it. So I had to write another song immediately.
Oh my God. This is a lot of work. This is a lot. You do as much work about this stuff as I do. It's actually somewhat comforting. I really actually glad to hear it.
So I had to write another song immediately just to prove that I could write a song, or just proving to myself.
Yeah. No, I get that part. I absolutely 100%.
Yeah, and so I did. I was actually able to write it, and this time I didn't tell my friend. I did it in secret, and it wasn't until it was all done that, and then I told him. And then that was it. Like, I couldn't write another song after that. And then 3 or 4 years later I started writing again, and then I started channeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's and if you had told me a year ago I'd have created as much as I created and I'd be in the middle of something called the Legion of Bugs, I'd be like, you're fucking crazy. Like, what's wrong with you? What are you sniffing? But there's it. So I guess it's just to say that, there's no timetable on this stuff, that it happens when it's supposed to happen. It sounds cliche and trite, but I think it's true. And I'm grateful that I'm super grateful that it just sort of like popped out of the woodwork and was like, hey, pay attention to me now. Like, it's popped out of the woodwork and told you, pay attention, this is what you're doing now. And I find that really exciting. Now I did submit my strips about a month ago.
Yeah.
And last Wednesday, on a very, very bad day where we had a fire in the building and other stuff happened, I got my first rejection letter. And I know that's so funny, because I have a writer friend who said the exact same. He's like, yeah, you're first. And I was like, I know.
Yeah, but it's well, let me tell you, back when I used to write poetry, I did submit one of my poems to one of those like poetry magazine, stuff, and I got a rejection letter. And it seemed like a form letter. It seemed like,
mine was a form letter. I mean,
yeah.
But they did. I just want to say
Yeah.
that they did say, and I know that this is only in my head. This is absolutely not reality. So I'm very clear about that. But they say, like, blah, 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 blah. Thank you very much. Blah, blah, blah. Does not suit our interest. Blah, 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 blah. Please feel free to submit again in another 6 months with entirely new characters, situations, and jokes.
Oh, really?
It said something like that. And I was like, I know that's just part of the form letter, but in my head, it's bold, italicized, the font is huge, and there's glitter on it. So.
Well, my form letter was very, treated me like I was made out of glass or something. It went on and on about like how the fact that they're not accepting my submission has no reflection on me as a writer, as an artist. I know, it was like,
oh my God.
really
you got a free therapy session in there. Awesome.
I didn't feel like
better luck, Charlie. Submit something better. That's what I got. So
I didn't feel like I needed that kind of like, stroking, but I was like, so my conclusion after reading that letter was like, oh, I guess they really understand the fragility of the artist's ego.
The comic strip syndicate so did not. they were lovely, but they was like, oh, I mean, I really feel like it might like if they could have put it in bold and had glitter on it, they would have. That's the vibe I got. But I'm sure I'm completely just bringing to my own insecurity and projecting into a letter that they send out to like 1,000 people a day.
You should you should definitely save that letter. I don't know what happened to my letter. I probably lost it like everything else. Uh, but I should have saved it. But yeah, you should definitely save that letter
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
pull it out when you do become a syndicated comic strip
Oh,
artist.
yeah. Yeah, and we had it was just on a day when some weirdo things happened at work. We had a fire in the building. It was just like, this is just one of those days. And I'm almost kind of grateful that it happened all in the same day, because then like all the crap got
Yeah.
kind of condensed into one weekday rather than spread out.
Yeah, exactly.
So it left me a little wrecked for a couple of days. Just everything, like not just that, but just like
Yeah.
sort of like, the combo platter, but that's going to happen. And I think you can't, I mean, I think it's completely reasonable and rational to feel it, but I don't think
Oh yeah.
it's healthy or necessary to like then dwell on it and sit on it for the rest of your life. There's a bunch of other places I can submit. I can submit again in 6 months. I can create my own thing. I don't, like, it would be great to be syndicated, but there's also lots of opportunities in today's world for doing it yourself. Like Patreon and just to start out with a Patreon. And then there's a whole, sort of level of Comic Cons and putting your work out there and doing all that. So, like, one rejection letter isn't gonna change any of that. 40 or 50,000, yes, I might get upset at that point.
Well, the story that people often sort of retell whenever you're talking to somebody who's trying to create something or do something new is like Thomas Edison failed like 10,000 times or something like that, and
Yeah,
in
something
trying
like
to
that. Yeah.
invent whatever it is that he invented. I
Yeah.
forget. What did he? The light bulb? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's 1,000 or 10,000, but it's
it's some ridiculous number, and
Yeah.
then like he succeeded on that number plus one. Like, and that is true. There's, I mean, it's a LinkedIn traditional story, and there's all that kind of thing that's all around LinkedIn. I'm sure you've seen those as well as I, and that they're all self-help and they're all like rah rah. But but they're and they are superficial, but at the heart of them, there's a real message there. And there's keep trying, because you don't know how close you're going to be to success. And if you quit, you could have been like, there's a drawing of like a guy like in the mine, right? And he's mining and he stops because he's not finding any diamonds or rubies or whatever.
And it's
there. And it's right there. If he just gone just a little bit more. So, creativity is, I think it's like Vegas. It's like you get enough wins for you to keep playing. And, at one point you either say, I got, I'm done, or, you go, oh, that was, I got a big win. And if you're smart, you bank it and you go, now I'm done. Yay.
But I think I'm of the mind that if you do it because you love it, well, that's only true for commercial success, right? So if your goal is commercial success, then there is such thing as failure. But when you're creating something and you're doing it because you just love creating it, then there is no loss. There is no failure,
Absolutely. 100%. Absolutely. And it sort of ties into what I was saying, at the beginning of the conversation, really, about like, I'm seeing a lot of stuff, which there was very little to no pay for 90% of it. And I didn't do it to make money. I did it because it was A, the right thing. B, I just loved all these projects. I love the emceeing and I love the shows that I did. I love all of it. And I did it for the love of it. And it was and still is a true source of joy for me. And for me right now, the strip is sort of taking that place. And um, so I'm trying to sometimes, as I'm sure you're the same way, and every artist is. Sometimes you just, you're like, I just want people to see this, and I want to make money, and like there's that part, right? But ultimately, in the in-depth part of that, yeah. So the creation of it is its own success.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, let me tell you a funny story. So I get these like weekly notices from Apple Music, telling me like how many plays I got on, of my song of my album that's out there, and every week it's 0. And the other day, I happened to be looking up some, musical artists, and I look at her Spotify page, and it was like, you know, over 1,000 plays or whatever it was, and I'm like, huh. And then I look at my Spotify page, and like, how many? I had 2 plays that month. But
I'm like that
hey,
with Instagram. I'm
what?
like that with Instagram because I follow a lot of cartoonists,
Yeah,
because I want to see what's out there. And although I think I kind of want to, I'm worried about, like, I don't want to read a lot of other people's stuff because I don't want to get
yeah,
influence, and I don't want to
yeah,
unintentionally steal something or whatever. And I don't want to get into that game because that's not a game I want to play. But for right now, it's kind of cool just to see a lot of other people, and I'm meeting some people, just other people who are probably doing the same thing that I'm doing. Like they have their real job, and then they're doing this as this thing that they love, and with sort of some hope of like, well, maybe I could be successful at this and make money at some point. But it's really interesting, and there's some really interesting work out there. I mean, there's some really interesting work, some really kooky stuff, and some stuff that's just crappy,
yeah.
and some stuff that's just magnificent. And you're like, why are you not making $1 billion? Because you're fucking amazing. There we go. So I've now loosened up after an hour and a half. Um, uh, and then there's the thing, and I will be publicly admitting that I'm as petty as everybody else is on the planet when I see somebody's comic strip that is literally a piece of crap and they have like
Yeah,
5,000 likes, and
yeah,
I'm like, what in the hell are you liking? That is a piece of crap. The art is terrible, the joke is dumb, it's not laid out well. I don't even understand it. What the fuck is you getting? So I could get all very upset about that. I try not to, as you can tell, I try not to dwell on it too
yeah,
much.
yeah.
But no, it is it, and I say that, and I'll just be honest that I do that, and I'm assuming that every other artist does the same thing. I'm sure
Sure.
someone's looking at mine and going like, "How's this guy got?" Because that's not very good. I'm sure of it. Obviously, that's just everybody's got their taste. That's fine. But I am, like I said, I am enjoying really seeing some people's stuff. I've come across some really strange stuff. There's one guy who I've written to, and I think he's just kind of marvelous. But he's got a comic strip called Dope Cat.
Dope cat.
Dope Cat. Dope Cat is a cat that smokes dope.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was gonna ask. So
Oh yeah,
dope as in marijuana. Yeah, okay.
dope as in marijuana,
Yeah,
marijuana. Yes, the
yeah,
marijuana guy,
yeah,
and I think it's just hilarious, and it's goofy, and it's very much in like the crazy cat kind of vein. Like, it's very like almost 1930s feel, and the drawing style is super old and cool. And then it's got this really modern sensibility. So it's a really interesting synthesis. And I mean, there's a thing of like, well, that's not going to be in the Washington Post. It's possible, maybe it will be, but that's probably such a subject matter that probably won't be that. But I find it
well, I don't know, it's
I
marijuana
don't
is
know either. I
becoming
don't know either.
legal. Yeah.
But I can't see it next to Blondie and Dagwood, and whatever one feels about that. But um uh so anyway, but yeah, I do love his comic strip, and so I find myself talking him up a lot because I just think he's great. And there's a couple other strips that are just really inventive and interesting. And again, I think I have to stop reading them because I'm worried about like unintentionally copying,
Yeah,
in a way that I just, like if I unintentionally pay an homage to like a Peanuts or Bloom County, which I have a couple times, intentionally done that.
that's
Um,
different. Yeah.
That's a little bit different. You know, in fact, I had an Angie that I just sort of came across when I was looking through some stuff from last spring, where I had her flying a kite, and she just can't, get it to fly. So she goes inside and she uses a fan, to keep it thing. And I was like, well, this is such a Peanuts thing. I mean, this is really a Peanuts idea. This, so I found the Peanuts font online, and I structured the strip like it would be a Sunday Peanuts strip, like with the boxes, and instead of like all my stuff is like a tower. So, but I had it as a horizontal, and I don't think anybody got it, but I loved it. I thought it was like, really great. And I was like, oh, I can do better, but like this was a good first try, and I get what I'm doing, right? So and I've got like every once in a while I'll do a little bit of something. At the beginning of Legion of Bugs, I did a whole ripoff to a DC Comics, Adventure Comics 247 Introduction of the Legion of Superheroes. And the original cover is like, oh God, a billion years ago. And it's got Superboy, and he's in the middle of this room, and there's like a desk there with like 3 superheroes, and they're all voting no because he doesn't have a unique enough superpower for them, And it's a really goofy thing. So I kind of just totally ripped it off as like the Lone Apple cover. And I got done with it, and I have to tell you, I was like, I don't care if anybody in the universe thinks this is funny or interesting, but I freaking loved that piece of art. I really loved it, and I was so happy with how it came out. I was really, really happy with that. And I've done a few other things. Like I just did an homage to Captain Marvel the other day, where it was Captain Moovel, because I do a lot of cows. I don't know why I do cows, maybe from Wisconsin. I don't know. But
That's okay.
Cows are easy to draw, and cows, there's like a million puns that you can do with cows. So I love it.
Yeah. Is it Gary Larson?
Gary Larson. Yeah, he's another.
Did a whole bunch of things with cows.
Cows. He is all about the cows and the women with the cat eye glasses. And
yeah.
And I'm really influenced by him too. Like this telephone operator that I was referencing a little while ago, she has like the cat eye glasses, and I know that that's completely directly from Gary Larson. I absolutely know it, but I also know that like that's sort of a level of homage and swiping that is okay. I can't describe it. I just feel it, sort of feel it, but it's really, I just love Peanuts. I read all 50 years of Peanuts.
Oh yeah?
Last autumn.
I
had bought the Fantagraphics is this publishing house out of I think it's Portland, Oregon, and they publish all these collections of different strips from like the last 100 years, and Peanuts has 26 volumes, and it took me a few years to get them all because they're kind of a little pricey.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't have the money just like to drop a couple $1,000s and buy all of them at the same time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have the money, but I can't spend the money on 26 books. Like that's not responsible. One can, but what should one is the question.
Yeah.
It's not like buying shoes and leaving them in my cubicle for days on end.
I know you're pointing at me.
I know, I'm being funny. I love your shoes.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, JJ would buy shoes, keep them at her desk, and then one evening would like try them all on and return, and you would return some of them, right? And then like keep the rest.
Yeah. So
I thought I never knew anybody who did that, so that was really fascinating to me. So I'm fixated on it.
Well, it's not that I kept them on my desk. I had it all delivered to the office because it was easier to accept packages at the office than at home, because I'm never home. So I would order shoes, especially boots. Like I can't find boots that because I have such fat calves that I can't fit into regular boots. So I always had to order these wide calf boots, and so you can only order them. Anyway, so I would order a whole bunch of shoes, and then I would actually model them in front of my
it was so great.
coworkers. Yeah, it's like, which one do you like? And I would keep like 1 or 2. I would order like 5 or 6, and I would keep 1 or 2 and then return the rest. Yeah.
I mean, and I've now since then I have met other people who do similar things, especially with the internet, like through Stitch Fix and other dress and clothing companies like that. Like I now I understand that that's just something that people do. I'm not a clothes horse. I'd be happy in like a t-shirt and jeans or pajamas for the rest of my life and be completely and 100% happy and never, like I have some nice clothes, but I'm like, I don't really care. Which has been also a great boon in the pandemic. Like I can dress however I want. Like I can shave my head, which I'm loving. And I can do it. Nobody cares anymore. And I can dress down as far as I want, and nobody cares. And I don't care. And don't get me wrong, I have a suit. I have a couple suits, and I look good in a suit, and I like wearing my suits.
Yeah.
But that's the job. That's not my default. And I guess that's sort of the schlubby artist sort of. There's like something in artist brains that we're all sort of schlubby. I've been meeting some other artists, and I'm like, oh my God, we're all the same. This is insane. I mean, like you guys are famous and like super wealthy, but we're all dressing like super schlubby. It's great.
I think there is a thing with a creative person that requires some aspect of their life to be chaotic in order to function. Yeah, because I feel like, there's a part of me that craves order, because there's a part of me that is so comfortable with mess and chaos that the other part is constantly trying to organize and and bring order to my life. But then the chaotic part is constantly chaotic, and so so it's a never ending battle. Like there's always one aspect of my life where it's like it's a shit show. And I'm like,
well, as I said, my superpower is organization, so everything is pretty organized. And when I get a pile of papers, which I have right here, this for me is my chaos. This is, I'm sorry, I'm not completing the picture. I'm so sorry. This are all my notes for the Legion of Bugs for the next couple of weeks. This is all of them. This for me is chaos.
I
crazy.
I have a pile of paper that I have to go through, and this is like, I don't know, either I have to file them away or throw them out or something, that I keep shuffling back and forth between my desk chair and my bed and back and forth. So when I have to use my desk, I have to take it off my chair and put it on my bed. And when I want to, lie down on my bed, I have to take it off my bed. And it just goes back and forth every day.
Yeah. I don't have that problem, thank goodness, because that would do me in. That would literally do me in. But in my current setup now, so I'm in this. I have a 2-bedroom apartment on the Upper West Side, rent stabilized, and it's 300 square feet, 3 rooms of 10. I think that's 300 square feet.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know. Nobody seems to know. I keep telling that and nobody knows. But in any event, so I've kind of taken over the middle room. And on this surface, I have my work computer and my work monitor, which are now put away so I can focus on this thing. But every single day, in the morning, I take down the drawing table, which is usually right here where you are, fold it up. It's now back there. You can see it sort of on the floor a little bit.
Yeah.
And then the monitor, work laptop, and then I take all that down. So I'm constantly revolving, and it's part of the thing that's making me a little nutty right now.
That's only a necessity because of the cramped space that is New York apartments,
Right. That's what I'm saying. And then that's if I was in a different space, I could have everything on its own table. Wouldn't that be awesome?
I know, that would be awesome. Yeah. The reason why I have a screen is because I don't have my own space to do anything.
Okay.
Yeah. People think, like, I know people comment on the screen like, oh, that screen's so cool. It's like, well, it's a necessity.
Yeah.
It's not there.
I've thought about it too. I've thought, well, maybe if I was on camera more for work, I think I would invest in something like that.
Yeah, but you have your own room. You have your own
I
space.
do,
Yeah.
yes, and yes, but like in my head, and this is the dangerous place is up here. In my head, it's like, it'd be nice if I had I would love that kind of background, like something that I could put up and take down. But I'm not on camera very much at work. It's very, very, very rare. For work meetings, and certainly, I mean, there's meetings with people I work with, but I'm not dressing up. I'm not dressing up for them, and
No, yeah.
I'm not going to do much for them. They're not doing it, and we all have a tacit understanding, like we're
Uh,
not caring about that. But if I was doing sort of like this and like 4 times a week or once a week or whatever like that,
yeah.
then I'm like, yeah, I would buy a screen or something,
I
because
wonder.
I don't like the backgrounds that are in all the platforms, and we work with a lot of them at work, of course, because that's
Oh, right. Yeah, those backgrounds are kind of stupid looking. But this screen I actually got like 10 years ago when I moved into this apartment. So I actually bought it as apartment decor. And so I had it like against the wall to kind of like create like a frame, and that's where I had the dining room table, because there's a little space between the living room and the kitchen, and like, oh, this will make a nice like nook, so I had a
yeah.
dining room table and it had this against the wall. And when I had initially set it up, it looked really pretty, and I had a nice tablecloth and like seat covers on the chairs, and it looked really pretty. And so I took a picture of it. I don't know if I still have the picture. Again, I lose things. And yeah, but that's a digital picture, and this is before I started uploading stuff to the cloud. And so if I lost a phone, then I also lost the pictures. So there was one phone that I lost years ago, and I lost like 4,000 pictures on it because I had
uh,
not downloaded it. Yeah, I had not downloaded it to my computer or anything. So 4,000 pictures, and there were some embarrassing pictures in there too.
I had a external hard drive that crashed
Oh,
about a
yeah,
year and a half ago,
yeah.
and it had all 10 years worth of bingo pictures on it.
Oh, wow.
It was every week, and I had a photographer, and it was
Oh,
digital, so
wow.
he'd just like take 100 pictures every week, and I would pluck I would go through them every week as a ritual, and pick out like the best 3 or 4, post them on the Facebook, or I had a newsletter, so I would put a couple in there. It's like self-promoting, right? Like you're saying, like, look what a great time we had this week. You should have been there, but you can come this week. Like it's all of that stuff, right? And there's a lot of friends and pose and a lot of the performers that I had on there, and it was really neat. And then when I lost it all, where I thought I did, I literally just,
Yeah.
I thought I was going to lose my mind, but I spent a lot of money last summer to have it sent and rejiggered, and they sent me the hard drive. And at first I thought, because they said, well, we didn't get everything, we couldn't recover everything, we could only cover like 75%. And I was like, and I
But better than,
still spent like $1,000,
yeah.
and and I was looking through, and I was like, okay, so let's put my sadness and let's put the loss away, and let's just see what I have rather than what I don't have. And I have to tell you, like at first pass, I was like, I don't have any of it, it's all gone, and then like I had some stuff, but it was like, because people send in like their promo picture, right? Like, well, I had all of that, but I don't care about any of that. I don't care about some singer from 20 years ago sending me a picture of their headshot. Like, I don't need that. And I was like, great, this is the stuff that got saved, not the stuff that, really means something. And then I found a subfolder and a subfolder of a subfolder and a subfolder of a subfolder. And I was like, oh, here's 40,000 pictures from 10 years of this show. Now they're not in the folders, so they're a little like I can try to identify where they go, but at least I have them, like
Right.
that's a long project that I haven't wanted to delve into yet. But
So I wonder, did the metadata also save? Like, did it have, because the metadata would maybe have like timestamp and all that stuff, all that's like screwed up too.
well, no, it has the dates of it, of all when the pictures were loaded, but because you get busy and at times when you're working or whatever, there were times when I would take 4 or 5 weeks of bingo and off the camera and, and put them into folders, because again, super
Right, right,
organized. So it'd be like, May 1, 2006,
right,
like these pictures. So I have that data. So, but that may not be actually when they were taken, and they're
right,
not.
right.
So I can narrow it down quite a
Yeah,
bit.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, that's actually a really good news. And also, once I was looking around though, and I was like, here's a picture from sometime in 2010. There's a date on it, but I know it's not from the week that it says it is, but it's just four people talking. And I'm like, I'll never know where that is. I'll never really know where I can really put that. But I think what I'll eventually do is like put things into years. Maybe I can try to even get it down into months or something like that if I'm really feeling. But yeah, so there is some metadata there. I just haven't taken the time to.
That's a big project.
When I saw how many, I mean, it was like 40,000. It was like something crazy like that, and I was like, oh,
Yeah,
I can't. This is going to be a while to deal with this. So, because once
yeah,
you get started, you're not going to want to stop because you'll get
yeah,
just so into it, right?
yeah. I now have over 70,000 photos and videos combined, like 75,000 or something. And I don't know if 100% of it is backed up in the cloud. I try to, but sometimes like the cloud backing up thing doesn't always sync up, you know. So, yeah, but anyway,
But anyway, and
it's on my phone.
meanwhile, the film photos I took in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and early 2000s that I printed up and put in photo albums, all still there.
Yeah,
All awesome.
yeah.
Nothing's lost. So, like I was going to digitize all my hard photos, and I was like, and after this experience, I'm like, oh no, not gonna, no, I can't do
Y-
that.
Yeah,
So,
if you have actual photos, just keep them somewhere. Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I haven't super well organized, but
Yeah, yeah.
well, anyway,
Um,
so
so should we share some of your artwork?
yeah, we can do that. Let's do that. I think
Yeah,
I
let's
sent
do
some
that.
stuff, right?
Okay. Um, so I have it queued up here.
Oh yeah,
Let's
yeah.
expand this.
So yeah, this is like when I started again in 2016. This is the first one, and that I did, and and I look at it now, and I'm vaguely embarrassed, but it's okay. I mean, I learned how to. I mean, I can see that I drew in pencil, and then I just inked it, um, and didn't get all the pencil marks. That's okay. And of course, later on, I started using actual typeface for all the lettering because it was just neater. My handwriting is terrible, as you can see. But what I think is really kind of funny about this is that we have a song in the Big Orange Blot called An Ordinary Day. And so I specifically started out the strip with those words, sort of like to tie into another creative project that, may never see the light of day, who knows? But in my head, it's like super cool. But this sequence starts off a sequence from the original comic strip where she went to the optometrist and she got her eyes checked, and then she turns the camera and there's big check marks over her eyes. So I started this. It's just dumb. I mean, like I love puns and I love dumbness and I love all that stuff. So and I like that she has, in the early ones, she has a little bit of a conversation and sort of an argument with the omniscient narrator. So, like she's actually like, and I will do more of that. And I have done a little bit of that over time, but, you know, and part of it also too, for me, and I realize that, one can just say this without it being true, but this is actually true, is part of my idea about the whole memo sort of sequence of things is to show like a transformation, like, and really almost like the history of drawing, right? Like, and the progression of how it changes. And so part of that is actually embedded. And if you'll scroll back up, I'll show you something that nobody would ever know except for I know it, but that sort of off, that sort of beige background,
Mm-hmm.
that is actually a scan of some paper from a drawing book from my childhood.
Oh, wow.
Because after, I mean, like, it is actually a little off color, but over the years, it's just sort of aged, right? So I thought that there was like, since if I'm having a sort of as a bottom line artistic thing where it's like the history of my drawing, then I should include some tools like the paper. And this paper is actually still in the strip. I still use the same background, 317 strips later. And there's just a part of that I really feel is really important to keep.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the whole artistic idea about it.
By the way, I love it when artists explain their art.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, yeah, but I hate it like when I go to museums and the only explanation is untitled.
Here's a painting that's just a big red square. Figure it out for yourself.
I mean, yes, I understand that there's a subjective nature, and and me interacting with the art piece and figuring out what I gain from it and all that stuff. But you know what? There's also something to it, like understanding where the artist is coming from. Like
Yeah.
I find that much more interesting than what I think about it.
Yeah, no, I like that too. So I'm, this is why part of my idea about this is showing the evolution of not only by drawing, but also
Hmm.
just sort of the craft and everything like that. And I find that okay. I think that it would be nice in a perfect world for it to be perfect on day one, but it wasn't. And I could have waited a couple years until it was, but I don't think that would have served me. So this felt like it really served me. And we can go to the next one because it's
So
actually then like, oh, sorry.
yeah, so just a quick, so I mean, you hand draw these things and you draw them, and do you scan them?
So it's changed over time. So this particular one, I drew in pencil and then I inked on top of it, and then I erased the pencil in
Yeah.
most cases. You can
Yeah, and
see over the,
I could see the traces of the
yeah,
pencils.
there's a little thing, and then I go into Photoshop, and then I did all the hand lettering, but then of course in Photoshop I did the panels and I did the little interior boxes. I I think that I think what it is, because the panels are slightly different color. That's the color of the paper. So you're really, and actually if you look closely, you'll see the texture of the paper.
Yeah.
And I was also doing that intentionally, especially in the early strips, because again, I wanted to look like this was in somebody's notebook, like a 13-year-old notebook, and this is what it was. And I thought, yes, on one hand, that could, so that sounds like, like I'm pretending that it's more artistic than it is, but I actually really mean that. I actually genuinely wanted it to look like this is something that you might see in a notebook left over from study hall,
Yeah.
that somebody was doodling. And I kind of think that that's part of the artistic idea about it. I don't know if that comes off, but it's kind of what's in my head about it.
It comes off when you blow it up like this,
Yeah.
but usually I'm looking at it on an Instagram post and it's
Yeah.
tiny.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, it's changed a lot. So like in these days, it was pencil, pen, and then whatever. And then it wasn't until a little while ago. And it, this is, we're getting a little bit better here. Um, but as I'm learning to do these things, like I learned about vellum, right? So like you draw it in pencil, and then you put the vellum paper over it, and then you trace it in ink. And then if you've made a mistake, you just throw the vellum away and you just try it again. And also if you've got a character, and I found this a lot with me, like if I'm really struggling to like draw a character a second or third time, I just do some tracing until like really it's in my hands. And that certainly had happened with a lot of characters. Like now there's like Angie and Juniper and Lone Apple, Masquerade, some other characters. I can draw without reference material. But I really needed that in the early times. I will turn your attention over to, I do a lot of this little stuff, and I know it doesn't come through because it's so small, but like over on the first panel with a cat, that's that's an in-universe TV show called Kitty Corner. And a kitty corner sort of shows up every once in a while in the memos. And I just think it's funny that a cat is a coroner and that there's like a weird crime TV show like starring this cat. And of course, now I see all the mistakes and all the problems, and I see all the whatevers about this. But I still I love Juniper in this. I just love her. I've she was in the old strip, and she was different in the old strip, and I was redrawing her for this, and I got this inspiration about who she was, and she's like a real fashion person, and I got to draw really cool fashion stuff, and I didn't think that I was really into fashion at all, but with Juniper I love doing some research and drawing different dresses on her. And you notice in this thing, it's like she's a medical receptionist and she's got a cocktail behind the desk.
Oh, right.
Which is not something that you necessarily notice. It's just sort of there, and that's clearly like a drink because there's like an olive there.
That's funny.
And I love that kind of stuff where it's sort of subtle. It's in the background. It's not necessarily the focus of the joke, but it's a little bit of something in the background. Yeah.
But it's those little details that sort of add texture to the characters.
Yeah. And in the original version of this, the check marks were just outlines. And so in this version, I did them as solids, and I was like, which works better? I can't decide. So if I ever do it another version, I will just keep trying with that. But I love all the sound effects. They're all things from different like Pocket is from oh, for God's sakes, I've forgotten the character's name. Walter Mitty. And then ZZZ is the from Superman. It's the sound that Jimmy Olsen's signal watch makes when he calls Superman.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I think maybe the others are referenced too, but those two are for sure are references to other things. And again, you don't need to know that to enjoy it, but I think if somebody knew that, they'd become like, oh, that's kind of cute.
Yeah.
Or I hope so. I hope they would think that.
I didn't know it.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah. What do we got next? I can't remember what I sent you. Oh, I love this.
The Mona Lisa.
Yeah. So as I said, I love the cows. And summer of 2018, I did a month where I think I did about 20 in a month, which at that point was like a huge accomplishment. Maybe not 20, maybe there was like 15 in a month. And one of the things that came out of that was Great Bovines, A Cow Story, which I just love everything about it. And I have done about a dozen of those over the years. And this was the first one. And my partner, Matthew, loves the Mona Lisa. So, the Mona Lisa was our choice. And I was shocked how, I won't say it's easy. None of this is easy, but I was surprised how maybe quickly this came together. I kind of when I was envisioning it, I was thinking, oh, geez, Louise, this is going to take forever. But I was like, I'll do it. And then it's like, oh, it totally came together pretty quickly. And I've thought about redoing it in color, but I think I really like it just like this in sort of like a sketchbook.
Yeah, I think so.
So I think it's really, and it's sort of one of my, sort of the more iconic images that if you said, give me your 10 best iconic images, well, which is kind of what you did. This is one I would definitely choose. And there's some other Great Bovines of Cow Story that I really kind of like too. I did a Moulin Rouge last year.
Oh yeah.
And I couldn't get the crinoline to work out because I found a really great version of the movie poster with the Can Girls, and I couldn't get the crinoline. I couldn't get it. I tried for hours. I just couldn't get it to look right. It just looked stupid. And so I had to actually use the crinoline from the poster, and I wrote a note on the margin in the comic strip like, I'm very sorry, please forgive me, I've actually swiped somebody else's art, don't hate me. Somebody wrote a comment on Facebook, they're like, oh, I don't even know what crinoline is.
I don't know either.
Yeah, well, it's that material that like the cans, like that flouncy stuff or something.
Yeah.
So I couldn't quite, I just couldn't get it. And I felt it was more worth it to do it, I felt it was more worth it to do it and to do it not quite 100% of how I wanted it than to not do it and wait a year. So I think I could do it now, I think. Because now I think I have a sense of how to draw fabric. After Betty the Bedbug is in a series where she's wearing a tutu. And so I really worked on that. And I was like, now I feel like I understand how that fabric might flow a little bit with somebody who's dancing. So I may retry that this summer. So.
Couple of quick questions.
Sure.
So the title of your strip, say it for me.
Memo.
Okay, it's memo, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Like
this
memorandum.
Entire time, I know. This entire time, you know how I read it?
I know exactly
Memo.
how you. I know exactly. I know.
I don't know why.
I've only recently found out that people think that it's MEMO. I had no idea. I had a friend who's now passed away who she kept referring to it as MEMO. And I said, no, it's memo. It's like, oh, you mean Nemo? I'm like, no, it's not. And I found out other people who also thought it was the same thing, like Captain Nemo. And I think that's really hilarious. And I'm not going to correct anybody. I mean, I'm not going to put it in a strip, but memo was, remember I was telling you that my friend Brian and I were passing notes. Yeah. Somehow along the way, we decided that those were called memos. Yeah. And I don't know why. I have some of them. I'm sure it's like, I think we said something like a memo to the head crazy person in charge of, these notes or something like that. And I think it just sort of stuck. And I created this logo. I created this logo back in high school. Yeah. And I recreated it when I was going through the prep for this in summer of 2016. And I just, no other titles seem to work. And I know that, I don't know, people, I'm sure, don't know what it means. I'm not even sure I know what it means necessarily. If I was pressed to say, who does it refer to? Nobody. It's just the communication, I guess. I don't know. It feels like the right title for me. What can I say?
It actually makes sense that it's memo, but I don't know why. I think maybe it's the type, the way you have it. For some reason, it makes me want to pronounce it Memo.
That's funny. Yeah. No, I love it. I think it's great. And I'll continue. I'm not going to like, I just think I just keep going back. I think it's funny that we've got two different interpretations of it. I think that's great. But like, you're not alone in that. You're really, really not alone.
It's kind of funny. Yeah.
Maybe I will include it in an upcoming thing, in an upcoming little note or something with the strip, like how it's pronounced, but
maybe
invite people to say it however they want. I don't care.
So another question is, so what part does Matthew play in? Because
Matthew is the part of this which is like a foundation. So first of all, Matthew really brought me back to this. He really encouraged me to start drawing again. So if nothing else, that's his contribution. But his real contribution is he basically approves everything. He sometimes adds some lines. He adds some drawing here and there. He'll sketch out some stuff. He's very funny. I will be struggling with a line and he'll come in, read it and go, oh, this is what the line is. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so great. And so I'm very grateful for him and his contributions, of which there are many. Oh my God, for Mirror-O-Rama. So I don't know where I came up with this last autumn, but I came up with like this series of like the girl with the pearl earring and like all sorts of takeoffs. So I think this is the last one that I have, although I have another one that I'm going to do probably in May once Legion of Bugs is done. And this was my Thanksgiving contribution, the girl with the turkey leg. And it's just dumb. I mean, like, it's just a dumb pun. And I love drawing her. And she's super easy to draw because, like, once you've drawn her once, it's super easy to draw her again and again, and with lots of variations. I did one, which I'm not sure if I sent you or not, but girl with the pearl gem earring, with a pearl gem t-shirt, excuse me.
I don't think so. Yeah.
I had one with the girl with the Cheeto earring. No, it was a girl with, what was it? Oh, yeah, I can't remember. Girl with a pearl earring. So it was the girl with the pearl Cheeto or the Cheeto earring. I can't remember exactly, but it was just her, but like subtly had like a cheese puff through her ear, like an earring. And I thought that was the funniest thing I've ever seen. And Matthew looked at it and was like, I don't get it. I was like,
Yeah.
I don't care. There's some things that I know that other people don't get. I'll just.
I will admit that I don't get a lot of it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I do enjoy looking at it and watching it. I do want to get to the Legion of here's
Okay.
Lone Apple. So you
Yeah.
talked about Lone
So this
Apple a lot. Yeah.
this is the one that we were talking about. I was very happy with this. This was like just 3 months ago. I can already see mistakes and problems and things that would change in a heartbeat because that's just how I am. But a couple things that I think are fun. So like the box, the featuring, the yellow box saying featuring. I totally took that from Adventure Comics 247. Which is the intro of the Legion of Superheroes, and I just took it so I could put Legion of Bugs in there. And
Right.
and I did the same for the yes and the no because they were so perfect, and I thought it was like such a great homage to put this in. And I was very happy with how all the bugs came out. And the reason that the one is on the floor is that I didn't know that bug's name when I drew this. I didn't know his name on that day, and I was like, well, if I don't know his name, I don't want to say it, but I want to include him. So he's knocked his down, which I think is funny anyway. So, I'm quite, again, I'm happy with all of that
Did
stuff.
he knock it down because he's drinking? Looks
Well,
like
he's
there's
totally drunk. I mean, and he's a
yeah.
stoner. I mean, we don't make it really explicit, but, like between the lines, Sid, I think is the voice that I voice Sid in is like, hey dude, how you doing? Like it's not quite the right voice, but I hear his voice and he's really like one of those skinny old men that you see like in a small town that has like the long mustache and the long beard, and like it's like thinning, but it's like he's got the long hair and he's got the swigger on the top of like that's Sid. Like that's who I envision that character as. And so everything he says is sort of like in that voice, whoever that is, whoever guy that is.
Yeah.
um
You should so do you have like actual sound of the voices of each of your character?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't do them all. Like I can't vocal, but they're in here.
Okay.
Like Mighty Ant is the ant. For those of you who don't know, is the ant character in the middle, who's the main villain. And I think of him as sort of a very arch kind of character. Oh, I'm sorry, Lauren Apple, but we cannot admit you into our Legion of Bugs. So it's like he's a little bit more like that. And then Betty, who's our bed bug, who I have great fun drawing and doing. I think she talks in kind of almost like a Toady Fields voice, and she's just kind of there, and she's always really trying very hard, but it's hard for her. Life is so hard for her, Again, so that's Betty, and Betty does that.
Yeah, you should definitely record, like have voice recordings of these. You should. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I mean, I like Betty a lot. She was just sort of a runoff gag at some point, and then like she's now become like a major character, which I love. Oh, and this was one of my favorites. This is just from a couple of days ago, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Lone Apple is being attacked by all the Legion of Bugs, and I think what I can tell you about the Legion of Bugs is that in my universe, all bugs are from outer space, and all bugs have these powers, but they just don't show them because they're bugs on Earth, and they're here. But so they all have like these weird powers and these things that they're spitting at people. And some of them aren't real. Like a couple bugs are in there, of course, are not real bugs, but they're alien bugs. So I can fuss a little bit and make some stuff up. And I really love drawing this. I drew all these bugs independently. Actually, I got an iPad about a year and a half ago, and I've been trying to do some of my characters on the iPad digitally. And I think I did every bug on here. Yeah, I did every bug on here on the iPad. So that was a really interesting experience, because suddenly I didn't have paper. Like, and I couldn't just go erase something and change it. I was like, oh, it's digital. Don't have to worry about paper or pen. I don't
Mm,
have to scan it. Um, so that's probably how I'll eventually do it all.
yeah.
Just because I think it's a little easier, and I don't have to worry about paper and vellum and scanning and a whole process of that. So, and it's, it's very comic booky. It's, it's got bright colors. It's got the big sound effect. Um, it's, and then you've got Marge, the ladybug, and Sid, the aforementioned mosquito, who talks like an old drunk guy. And, or whatever, I don't know how you want, a stoner. And they're just kind of watching because, they're sort of borderline villains, which, they've now reformed in the last couple of days. So I'm pleased to say that they're sort of in the middle of their, they're like, they're gonna ditch the story. The story is almost done, and they're gonna ditch it, and they'll come back another day. Because I think if there's other stuff I can do with them, and I think I've done everything I can in this particular story with them. I always think it's great to leave everybody alive and running around the universe, and you can always come back to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Although we do have a habit of killing off the murder hornets. I've killed off one, and I believe a similar fate may be coming to Murder Hornet 2 in the next coming days.
How many murder hornets are there?
Well, there have been 2 so far, one last summer and one now. So I think we will continue to bring them in and then
killing them.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
I don't know why. I just want, and Betty will continue to do her dance. Betty does the Betty, which is this little weird ballet she does. And I created a little video for that, which I'm not sure if you've seen, but it's goofy and weird. So I'm having a good time doing all this stuff. It's all very strange.
Is it on your Instagram?
It is all on my Instagram, which is I just changed it. Let me grab my phone because I have to double check with my Instagram. Because you can change it now, like with a drop of a hat. I know what it is. It is, it's just my name, Andrew Altenburg MEMO. And Angie also has her own Instagram, although I don't. And Mighty Ad has a Twitter feed, which I don't spend much time on doing. But they're fun little out of the universe or, other ways to sort of promote and engage with the characters.
Here we go. Here is the Betty one, the video. Let's see.
No, that is the video. It's got some music to it too.
Wait, okay, hold on. I have to share it with I have to stop sharing, and then I have to share it again with sound. Share sound.
Yeah. I had somebody help me with this, and he was like, "What is this?" I was like, "It's something really stupid. Thank you."
Okay.
Oh my God, it will just play forever.
Yeah, because Instagram does that. It plays on a loop.
Yeah, it's really weird. So, it's super goofy and fun, and she'll come back and do the dance again before this is out, and then we're gonna give her and all the Legion of Bugs and the Lone Apple a little bit of a break for a while, and I'll go on to other characters. and there's Angie in the martini glass. So I did this like almost a year ago. I did this drawing, and at the time I was like, this is terrible, this is the worst thing ever, and I threw it all into a folder with a bunch of other versions, and I forgot about it. And then last week I dug it out, and I actually redid it. I just retraced it and cleaned up her eyes a little bit because they were a little weird in the other version. But essentially, I did this like a year ago, and I just was not happy with it. And then I was like, what was I not happy with? It's great. What's the problem? So this is where we think too much, I think, about our
Yeah. Am I following you?
I don't
I have
know.
so many accounts. I think I am following
Yeah,
you.
I think
Yeah.
you're following me.
Well, no, I have 3 different accounts, so I have to make sure I'm
Yeah.
following you from all of them because I go back and forth. So this kind of like reminds me. So Angie in the martini glass reminds me of something that I did, a little promo thing that I did for one of my shows. Where was it? Here we go.
Oh, neat. Oh, that's fantastic.
It's a little avatar of me.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute. JJ's Joy Juice.
So at the time, so this event was hosted by a friend of mine, and she, every event she does, she'll concoct a new drink. And she would name it too. So she named mine Joy Juice. And so I created this avatar promo, to put it on my social media. And when I told my guitarist, hey, this is what I'm putting up, he's like, JJ's Joy Juice. That sounds like a porn title. And I'm like, yeah, not my idea. It was given to me. So anyway.
Anyway, that's cute. But you've been doing a lot of stuff. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, not that often though. Like I only do, well, before the pandemic, I only did 2 shows a year. And since the pandemic, I did 1 live stream show last year, and I'm planning to do another live stream this year. So it'll be May 21st, a little plug.
Oh, that's right. You just said that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll be officially plugging it soon. I still have to like iron out some of the details. But anyway. Yeah. Hey, it's almost 9 o'clock. So
Yeah,
I think
it's been great.
yeah.
I gotta finish today's strip. It's right below this. I've been looking at it on the other side of us. It's back here. I have it all drawn. It's all there. I just have to fill in the balloons and post it. So it's
cool.
It was something that I already had a little bit of work done last night, so it was super easy to do tonight.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the thing is you do things in in clumps, and then you sort of scan it all, and then you put it where it needs to be and all that stuff. So
oh yeah, no, totally. Yeah. So because like, so is your process the same for every strip, or does it change depending on what you're doing?
Gosh, that's a really great question. When I was sort of flailing all my papers around, so like there's this, I just always just write down ideas, right?
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of stuff that what I call one shots. So they're like little ads or little this or little that, where they don't fit in anywhere else. They're just going to be something I'm going to do someday. So there's sort of a folder for that. So when I get stuck, I just pull something out. I look through it and go, oh, I want to do this today. Like there's like a muffins. There's a Muffins by Melissa satire that I'm looking forward to do. It's just a fun throwaway little thing. It's nothing really big deal, but it's just something fun I want to do.
You mean those like little bite-sized muffins?
Yeah, the little bite-sized muffins, right? And then I came up with a couple things for Krispy Kreme ads. I think of a lot of stuff for ads, so I don't know why, but that's just where my mind kind of goes, right? And so I do a lot of that stuff, and then with the stories, I kind of write out the general outline and then like some moments that I really love. So, and part of my process is that I leapfrog. So I'm finishing Legion of Bugs, but I've already got ideas in these things for other stories. Now, when I get to that, I don't know, but like a line might come, or there was one thing that I cut from Legion of Bugs because it didn't really fit when I got to it. It didn't quite fit right. And so it killed me to cut it. I didn't want to cut it. And I was really like, how can I ram this in? How can I I don't care. I'm going to fit it in. And I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? I got weeks and weeks and months and years to fill. Why am I rushing to like throw this one teeny thing into this thing when I didn't set it up? I didn't set it up right. It was my fault. I didn't set up this thing that I want to do right. And it was a kind of a throwaway thing anyway. But so I was like, okay, so how can I still use that? And it's really just an image. It's an image that I want to use somehow. And now I've formed an entire story around this tiny one image that I was going to use in 2 panels of Legion of Bugs. And that's got its own folder. And I'm like, okay, well, so now Lone Apple is going to see, this is something that's going to happen. And I have now time to build this up in the future, right? So, and with like the Nanny and Angie and Juniper group so at the end of that story, at the end of January, Nanny Noodle Legs encountered the robot Martha in her kitchen. It was a good cliffhanger. I thought, oh, this is fun, but I'd written a whole set of dialogue for the 2 of them. But I wrote that like in November, because one day I was sort of thinking about the characters, and this whole conversation came out of me, and I wrote it down. Now, will I use it word for word? Unlikely, but the gist is really interesting, and I really think that it's worth using. So, but like by the time I use it, I'm not sure. I wrote it like in November. I thought Legion of Bugs would take less time. I thought I'd be into the new story by now. I'm not. It just happens. And so whenever it gets out there, like it's already been written 6 months ago. Like there's actually some stuff coming up with Lone Apple and Mass Scrape, probably about a week and a half, that I also wrote like several months ago. Again, it just sort of came out of me, and then I file it where I think it's going to fit. And then when I get there, if it doesn't fit, then I move it somewhere else. And sometimes it's just a line or a goofy thing or a reference, or like I said, with this one thing, it's an image that I thought was fun and interesting and kind of sci-fi-y, and I kind of want to use it. But rather than like a tiny bit in one story, I can make it the thing of a whole nother story. So it's, all these things kind of happen. I had a character, I did a fake ad the other day, it was part of the Lone Apple story, for the Squeeze.
For the what?
For the Squeeze. The Squeeze is this bodybuilder ad that I did.
Oh, okay.
So he's like a big bodybuilder, and he's like, it's just a dumb, middle of the story ad. But I have an idea about the Squeeze for something I want to do with Lone Apple in a couple of months or in a few months, whenever I get back to him. But I thought of that idea 30 years ago. Like this was one of those things that like one day in the early 90s, I was like, oh, this would be a fun little story for the Lone Apple. And I wrote it down and I put it in the folder.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to use that. Now I don't have a line, I don't have a joke for that, but I have a little bit of a story for that.
Yeah.
And then the jokes kind of come as they come, through the situation. Excuse me. So, that's kind of my process. And I have to tell you also, I will write things. I tend to write things sort of as, how do I want to phrase it? Like writing dialogue, nobody ever says what they really mean, right? So so I write what they really mean first, and then I find another way to say it, especially if it just sounds too pedantic or it doesn't sound real, or it's too serious for a comic strip, for this material. And some of my best Mass Scrape stuff has been stuff that I thought of on the fly. He's trapped in mayonnaise, and he's like, hey girl, what's happening? And I was like, oh, that's right. He should be like kind of loopy and crazy, and like his super gay self comes out. Like he's like this sort of like buff guy, and then he gets all like loopy and like, oh, hey girl, and so I want to do like, I'm finding new dimensions of the Mass Scrape that I had no idea. Mass Scrape is another superhero from my childhood that I kind of repurposed for this strip, and there's a lot of that, which is really exciting because I get to use these characters that I did 50 years ago, that I created back in the 70s.
Yeah.
Carrot Head and Strawberry Girl are a couple characters that have been mentioned in the strip a couple times as being lost in time. And they were also characters. Like there was this whole group of heroes. And so you don't need any other reader doesn't need to know that. But for me, it's this extra added little thrill that like I'm kind of making these characters come to life that I've been living with for 5% of my life. And I get to give them vision, and I get to color them, and I get to, have them speak dialogue and, really breathe life and become people and become living beings, I should say.
Are there any characters that had been created that now you feel like you don't want to revive them?
There's a couple that it's not the right time to revive them. They will eventually, and I'm laying down. There's actually one character that I'm laying down a very, very, very long thing. Like we won't actually get. He's already in the strip, but it's a character from the old days. He's already in the strip, but not in the form he was in the old strip. And I'm loving in my own head, like, oh, nobody, even Brian, who is no longer part of that process, but reads this, even he doesn't know that this person is already in the strip. He has no idea, which I love. I love part of that, because it doesn't matter to the regular reader, but it totally matters to me. And it totally, when I tell him, I'm like, oh, this character, this is who this becomes later on. And when I tell him that, or when he discovers that, or when I finally go to that next step, he'll go, I can't believe that you've been laying this in from the beginning. I'm like, yeah, I have, because I thought about it from the get-go. And so I think about those kinds of things. And so I want to give entertainment value in the moment, but also like give myself some material for the future. And I love that kind of stuff. So early on, we had Lulu the parrot, which is our parrot. And I had started a little serial and I couldn't finish it because of time and just, circumstances of my life back 3 or 4 years ago. And I have a friend who also has a parrot, and she was like, well, who owns Lulu in your strip? I'm like, oh, I can't tell you because that would spoil the surprise, and not that she cared that much, but it was kind of a fun little thrill at one point when I revealed that Lulu was owned by Nanny Noodle Legs, and I was like, oh, I kind of like the fact that you didn't really know, and it did, again, it doesn't really matter to anybody, but this one friend was kind of interested, like, well, who owns her? Who's she referring to in the strip? I'm like, oh, you'll find out. And I thought some of that stuff comes from reading comic books, and you have to plan way in advance for that stuff. And I just, like to do that here. So, but is there anybody who absolutely will never come back? Well, there are some of our initial characters in the original strip that I would be hard pressed if they will ever see the light of day again. They weren't great. They didn't quite work. It was like the first 4 or 5 strips, and we completely abandoned them and never came back to them. And I could see, though, it was kind of a weird little mythical land, and I could see maybe now that we're talking about it, I could see them being maybe in a storybook within the strip.
Right.
Like you open, like you see a cover, and like, again, you, JJ, who's reading it, would never know that that's a character from 1980, my paper, but I'll know. And like, I kind of get to reintroduce them into this arena. So, so having said that, maybe I've just reversed myself and said, yeah, maybe they will find their way into this new reality somewhere. Excuse me. Or the movie, like the latest animated feature from something. These dumb characters that really didn't work. They really didn't work. we had a talking statue. Like like everything about it, like nothing worked.
What makes a character not work?
That's a great question, and I wish I had an actual answer, because my only answer is you
Yeah.
just know.
Yeah, because I have some songs that I've written that I still tinker with because it just doesn't work.
I think in those cases you
Yeah.
leave them to the side. They may work in the future, because
Oh
like
yeah.
I've had some characters that I put to the side and I'm like, I can't really think of anything for them, and it's not really their time yet. Matthew and I have come up with a lot of different characters, and I've got them all, but there's just not, it's not yet quite right. I don't have the on one hand, I don't have the artistic wherewithal to make it work, I think.
So
And B, I just think I haven't yet found a place for them. I actually had a friend also that write a short story, and that I asked him to write, and I haven't drawn that yet because it's not the right time.
So is it the drawing of it that doesn't work, or is it the character that doesn't work, or is it?
It's a lot. There's a lot of different things. When I come up with a new character, they usually, I mean, of course, they go through a few revisions. There's some characters that pop out of my head completely done, and I was like, I don't know how that happened. We had a character, sort of a, I don't know how, nosy next door neighbor Marlene in the strip over the winter. She completely came out of nowhere. I have no idea where she came from. I don't know who she is in my real life. I don't know where but she popped out fully formed. No, seriously. And I drew her, the first time I drew her, I was like, yeah, that's her. That's Marlene. And I don't think I even did a second drawing. I think the drawing in the strip is literally my first drawing of her, because she somehow just came out fully formed. I can't explain it. I don't understand it. Matt Scrape was really like that too, actually. He came out completely fully formed. I mean, some of his personality was still being worked on a little bit, but his look, his colors, all of that stuff, that just popped out. But as far as what doesn't work, I think you just kind of know when something is not working. Either a joke isn't working, a storyline isn't working, the design isn't working, and I have found it's best to sort of like, there's a moment where you just go, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
Here's a great example. Thanksgiving time, there's the Norman Rockwell Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
That has been done a billion times, right? Well, I thought, I'll do that with Angie and the Lone Apple and all these characters, and they'll be sitting around. And I started it, and I was like, I can't draw plates, and I can't draw a turkey, and I can't draw the table, and I can, but it's going to take me a long time to do it. So I need to build my skills up in those areas before I can really tackle that. And I've saved it. I mean, I'll do it eventually. It's just not the right time.
Yeah.
My skills also aren't yet right for that. It's right for other stuff, but it's not right for that. So, but yeah, and I had actually another character that I abandoned, a scientist character, and I had a whole bunch of strips sort of sketched out, and I started putting them together. This was last like October, November, and I started putting them together. I was like, he's not working. He's just not. It's not even that it's not funny. It's just that it's taking away from the rest of the story, and it's not necessary. It's stuff that I can cut, and I don't think it's good enough for me to include. So he's still there. He'll pop in at some point when I find something for him to do, but I don't have anything for him to do yet. So there's a lot of, kind of a lot of those decisions that go through every time you put pencil to paper.
Yeah.
I had, like I said, the best things were when they just sort of work and they kind of come out fully formed. Like we had an ant in Legion of Bugs who transformed from a bug to a person, and he came out as like a very Hamptons. Oh, I'm going to meet Muffy and Biff, and we're going to go play some car. We're going to play and I like, and his look like completely. I mean, again, I got the iPad and I was like, clickety click clack, he's done. Like I didn't even have to do a second version because I knew exactly who he was and how I wanted him to look. But there's also a character that like he was worth a couple jokes. And then I didn't really have anything else for him to do because he's a little bit of a one joke guy, and maybe he'll show up again like Betty did. So, and that's the long form of story of this kind of storytelling where I can have somebody for a couple jokes and then I don't use them for years and they come back out of the blue.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. It's like no one's saying I can't do that, and you know, and that's really part of the thing that makes it really exciting because anything can happen on any day.
So all of your characters, they all live in the same universe?
No.
Oh, okay. Because I thought earlier you kind of alluded to that, but no, they're actually in different universes. Okay.
So yes, so Emcee and her friends are in one universe, and she draws the Lone Apple, and then the Lone Apple and Mighty End and all them are in a separate universe, and he draws her. So
that's very.
It's super trippy and fun, and I love doing like I don't have to even state it. It's just a thing, it's whatever. And then eventually maybe they'll meet because I think that would be fun.
Oh, now that kind of explains why the Lone Apple being rejected by the Legion of Bugs, and on the side panel was somebody drawing, and like I was thinking like that's not him, referring to you. I'm like, I don't know who that person is, and this is definitely like a sort of a meta kind of thing, and I'm like, yeah.
So her story ended, and then she goes into, and this has happened a couple of times where, so that's the bridge of her like drawing, or like at the end of Legion of Bugs, she'll get up of like after the Legion of Bugs is done, she'll get up and like now, and then she'll announce whatever is going on in her life that I'm putting her in, whatever situation she's going. She'll be like, now time to go and do that.
Yeah.
Which is a nice bridge. And
I guess I have some catching up to do.
And it's fine. And look, it's maybe it's overly complicated, and so maybe I should simplify. I don't know.
No. You do what you. I mean, it's your art form. It's yeah.
I think that there's it's a little complicated, but I think it's sort of in the long run it's worth it.
Yeah.
Because there's some fun stuff in there, and and look, at the end of the day, if you don't even understand everything, I hope you're at least getting some enjoyment out of it, and the bright colors.
Yeah.
People always say, oh, the bright colors are great. I'm like, okay, well, thanks. That's like, you have a really nice personality. Thanks.
Well, I do these 100-word stories.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But I also, accompany it with photographs that I've taken that sometimes is related to the story and sometimes it's not. But if it's not related to the story, then at least I try to make it like capture the feeling of the story at least. But anyway, I got a comment the other day because I've often wondered if people are just liking the photos or if they're actually reading the stories. and I kind of got the answer because a friend of mine, she said, well, I have to admit, I do respond to the pictures, that she enjoys the pictures more than the stories is, I think, what she was trying to say in a very nice and diplomatic way.
Well, people don't read anymore as it is, and so it's all about pictures and whatever. Anyway, we do our art. It's a lot of fun. I'm going to continue. I hope you continue. I am going to close now. However, I do have to finish today's strip, and then I have a job tomorrow.
Yes.
To go back to the workday world in the morning.
So before you go, tell whoever's listening where they can find your stuff.
Sure. So you can find me at one of the two websites, jumpingforjoy.net or andrewaltenburg.com. They both point to the exact same blog. There's only one. They both go to the same one. I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on the Twitter. I also, you can see all my work at ello.com, or maybe it's ello.co, C-O. And also on DeviantArt. I have a portfolio on DeviantArt as well. I also have a Pinterest, which I keep everything in, but so there's a lot. I just keep full galleries in various places. That way, because different people like different things, ways to see stuff. So, I have all these places, and I'm always open to suggestions about where I can display it or I can post it. Somebody suggested Reddit, but I haven't pursued that yet. So if anybody listening has any ideas of where I could post my stuff to get more exposure, I'm up for hearing it.
Yeah, there's this website that I came across some time ago that I think I don't know if they're curated stuff, but it may be suitable for comics. I'll send it to you by email or something. Yeah. Yeah, if you could send me like all the different links where you want
Yeah, I
people
can
to
do that.
find your work. Yeah, I could do that. And also
And then of course the Instagram.
the Instagram. The Instagram.
The Instagram also has, when Matthew and I cook, we're cooking grub in our tiny place because we have a kitchen the size of a postage stamp. So we post our wonderful meals, which are very wonderful, but we make them in a very, very small place.
Yeah, I actually enjoy those too. Yeah. And one last thing before you go, I decided that I'm gonna start this. I would like you to tell people to subscribe to my YouTube channel.
Okay.
Or subscribe to my podcast and my YouTube channel.
I wish I had like the puff thing.
And it's called Beer Cake with JJ Co. Yeah.
By the way, I just want to mention that I don't wear my glasses like in video or pictures ever, but I did for you because I didn't feel like I could see you for this interview. Where are you again? Where'd you go? But I'm going to do it for this. Tell me what to say again.
No, just tell people in your own words. Just tell people to follow me. Follow this channel.
Okay.
Subscribe. Yeah. Subscribe to Beer Cake with JJ Co. or whatever. Beer Cake Podcast.
All right. I'll do that. I'm just giving you a couple seconds so you can separate it out if you want. Hi, everybody. This is Drew Altenburg from the MEMO comic strip. Please subscribe to JJ Co.'s YouTube thing, Beer Cake thing. That's not right. Can you write me something and I'll put it in, and then I'll wear my glasses so I can read it. Seriously, I'm not kidding. I'm better with a script in these kinds of things. If you want something specific, just write.
Yeah. No. Just I think maybe that will make it into the bloopers.
Okay, well that's a blooper reel.
Yeah.
So we're asking them to subscribe to your YouTube channel. Is that what we're doing?
Subscribe to my podcast and my YouTube channel. Yeah.
Okay. Podcast. Let me do it one more time. Hey everybody, this is Drew Altenburg from the MEMO comic strip. Please subscribe to JJ's podcast and YouTube channel. Awesome interviews and great music.
Great. Actually, those are two different channels.
I asked you to write something.
No, it's okay. You're the first guest that I asked you to do that too. Right. So I think I will now, for subsequent guests, I'm gonna have to script it. Yeah.
Just a little thing in the chat that I can read and go like, I know what I'm talking about. So.
Oh, in the chat. Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah, just like a little thing in the chat.
All right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I like looking at my funny faces. Because I'm secretly 13. Matthew must be wondering what happened to me.
There we go.
Oh. Oh, there it is. Okay, great. Okay. Hi, all. This is Drew Altenburg from the MEMO comic strip. Please subscribe to Beer Cake with JJ Co. on YouTube and most podcasts. Please subscribe to Beer Cake with JJ Co. on YouTube and most podcast streaming services.
Perfect.
That smile of insincerity. Okay, I'm tired. It's late. I have to go.
All right.
I
Well,
adore you. Thank you for a great conversation.
thanks everyone for listening. Thank you, Drew,
Thanks all.
for being my guest. And it was great seeing you and catching up. And yeah. So we look forward to seeing what adventures all of your hundreds and thousands of different characters that are in your head going to do.
See you all. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Jada.